right, I'm going to call the meeting to order for Wednesday, May 7th, 2029, regular board meeting.
Director Assad Lucas.
Here.
Director Battistelli.
Here.
Director Goldstein.
Here.
Director Marshall.
Here.
Director Potter.
I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshall.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to recess for an executive session to discuss real estate matters regarding the potential sale of 13 and a half acres south of the ESC at East Lake Station pursuant to Board Policies 2.0 General Operating Limitations and 2.5 Asset Protection and Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4024A.
So moved. Second.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshall.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
All right, we are going to reconvene from our executive session. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rise if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, on to superintendent update.
So I gave you all an update, as you know, on work study. I'm also mindful that we got out here late compared to what we had projected. So I'll just simply state that we're in the finishing stage of the school year, excited about that, have high school graduations that commence on Monday of next week, and look forward to finishing in strong fashion, doing some hard work this summer, and then just gearing up for an outstanding 25-26 school year. That's it from me.
Thank you. All right, on to Board of Education comments, recognition, awards, and vision. Start with Director Potter.
Thank you, President Goldstein. It has definitely been a busy time of the year, but I want to take a special moment to acknowledge all of our educators and students that are going through all of their testing. Testing has overtaken, I feel like, the whole district, and there's kids testing everywhere I look. It can be extremely stressful. I think one of our fellow board members shared her daughter has like a dozen something tests, and I'm fortunate to not be in that phase of my life yet, but my heart goes out to both the students and parents that deal with the stressed out kiddos and also the educators that are dealing with all those emotions. And as we wrap up the year, I hope everyone enjoys the last couple months of being a senior. I know they're done. I think today was their last day, which is just hard to believe. Every time we hit this time of year, I'm like, I cannot believe it went by this fast. And I'm excited. I've been hearing all the amazing things that these kids are off to do, and it doesn't seem to matter how challenging their life was. They're still finding a way to achieve greatness, and I couldn't be more proud of them all. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Marsh-Holshan.
Thank you. Well, happy Teacher Appreciation Week, everyone, and a big thank you, of course, to all of our teachers and to the staffs and the PTOs who put together a lot of the celebrations of teachers. I know that that's a lot of work that our parents and communities put in, and it is very well deserved for the teachers that they are honoring. We had the 5-star 5K, and I'm sure everyone else will talk about it. Congratulations to our board president for winning in her age bracket, and for Director Battistelli for getting my son to walk the whole thing. That was a big accomplishment. I was excited to be there and see the cricket team had a booth set up. And we're practicing, even though the fields were super wet. And I'm excited that this upcoming Saturday is the ribbon cutting for that. And I'm sure I have a bunch else, but I can't remember. It is also the last day of session. So happy Sai Dai for everybody who celebrates that. And thank you to especially our finance team this year. That was an incredibly hard budget year. And just amazing job for somebody that was down there for other reasons. I was continually talked to about what a great job our team did, and I know it's really frustrating in these financial times and the choices that Colorado has made, but I really appreciate all the work they did. So thanks.
Thank you. Director Battistelli.
I have a big, long list of events that I attended. I apologize, but it's all good news. And I do also thank Gina and Aaron, our finance team, for the work they've done this past year. It's been pretty monumental. And Gina always does it so elegantly. I was going to say also, no worries, I'm fluent in 5-year-old, so I was happy to assist with getting him around that loop. So the first thing I want to do is congratulate our classified employee of the year, Lynn Kelly. She's the registrar secretary at Riverdale Elementary School. I think she's dedicated, 26 years to her work there. I'm looking over there because Lori and Chris have all the numbers. Then Brittany Wallace, I wanted to recognize her, certified employee recognition this year. She's an English teacher who's served at Horizon High School for over 30 years. I also attended a few different events. I attended Sherry, is it Sherry or Cherie? Sherry, thank you. I'm terrible with emphases. Sherry Blunt, the principal at Northglenn High School, who's retiring. I attended her baseball the baseball team had a little ceremony for her at the beginning, and we were able to sign her jersey. And I thanked her for her years of service because she's also served 26 years, something like that, 12 of them as the athletic director at Northglenn. And she's made a wonderful impact there. And we can see part of that. She helped in the creation of the STEM program there, which is a pretty well-perceived program for our district. I attended the art awards ceremonies with Amira and Lori, and we were able to award the elementary, middle, and high school kids for their work, and it was so wonderful to see them get recognition for that work. The little boy who found out he was actually getting money, that was hilarious. I attended the STEM appreciation breakfast at Northglenn High School. The community partners were being honored for taking part in panels and I think offering resources and so on and so forth. Sherry was recognized there too for her work. We had some wonderful presentations from the STEM launch fourth grade class, I believe. They talked about their windmill project, wind energy project. I think they were awarded the CSU Spurs recognized them as one of the top projects, I think, at least for their grade. I think that's correct. And then I attended the Thornton High School Cultural Fair and performances. There was some fantastic food, particularly from Tajikistan, and there were great cultural dances and performances. And I also wanted to note Future Forward is collaborating with the city to create metal artwork to beautify roadsides. So over the next few months, keep an eye out for it. It's wonderful to see that partnership taking place between the district and the city. I like those kinds of partnerships. So that's all the news I have. Thanks to all the teachers again, Teacher Appreciation Month. It's not enough, but it's one of the ways we can thank teachers for those decades of service they've been offering us. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Director Assad Lucas.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I also kind of have a little bit of a longer list. Just want to make sure all things get recognized. First off, want to give my unequivocal gratitude to all of our educators. Because of you, because of our educators, our students, our families, and our communities are stronger. I talk a lot about the importance of relationships and how relationships matter, and our educators are building relationships every day with kids that matter and that help them prosper. I happened to be back in my hometown from Sunday to Monday, and Monday morning I went for a run throughout my town that is incredibly small and happened to run by all my schools that I attended because it's an incredibly small town. And the school was in session. So by the one elementary schools, kids were out playing. The high school, kids were just getting there. And as I'm running by, all these memories and sort of kind of flashing back of many, many years ago, a few decades. And the first thought that came to my mind was an educator at each of those buildings that made an impact, that made a difference for me in some way. And so, again, our educators have such long-term effects and impact on kids and families in the community. So thank you for all that you do. I wanted to address the new order of mental health cut the cut for mental health funding for K-12 education, but I am going to wait during later in the meeting when we discuss the proclamation for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. So President Goldstein and I, along with Deputy Superintendent Fobert, had the privilege of attending the Westminster Annual Education Board Dinner last evening. It was a lovely event hosted by the city to recognize the partnership between them and the school districts that are within their city boundaries. Because again, relationships matter, and when we can work together, we can build stronger communities. This past Friday, I also had the honor of attending the Six Siblings Foundation Scholarship ceremony, where outstanding students from Thornton High School are recognized for their achievements. Last year's recipient, Catalina Alcaraz, was a speaker at the event. And I've known her for probably about, 4 years now. She was a year older than my daughter, and they were on the volleyball team together and developed a relationship. And she is an outstanding young woman at CSU, studying cybersecurity stuff in the honors program. Very, very well deserved. The recipient this year did not want me to share her name, but she's very well deserved for it and will go on to do amazing things. As mentioned, attended the 5-Star 5K, and as always, an amazing event. President Goldstein and Director Marsh Holshin and Secretary Bastelia and I got to help celebrate the students who received the Aim for the Stars scholarship, and it was a really exciting event for them. Again, hard work that these students have done to make these achievements, and they definitely needed to be celebrated and recognized, so that was really exciting. And again, a huge thank you to Lisa Reed, the whole Child Initiative team, and all the volunteers that were part of making another successful event. And next year's date, I think, has already been announced for May 9th or something. Yeah, early May. So keep it on. Don't be like me and register too late and not get a shirt. So, and then lastly, for the evening, is just want to congratulate all the graduating seniors. Today was their last official day of their K-12 education. And so it's like reflecting back. I'm a little sentimental about it right now because I have a senior who will be graduating Monday night, and she's my first. So it's an exciting time. She's the first on for the whole family, so it's a really exciting time for everybody. But just reflecting back of the years, hard work and dedication, and again, when going back to teachers and the relationships they build when handing out, or when she's thinking of who she wanted to invite, of her teachers, thought of all the teachers that made a significant impact, which happened to be all of them. And so, again, relationships matter, and because of that, it gets our kids to the end and helps them be successful. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. I've been busy too. I went to Congressman Gabe Evans's office on April 22nd. I had a meeting with his chief of staff and his education folks, and we had a great conversation about how federal funds affect us for schools. So that was a real rewarding experience. I felt like they really listened to me. Then I went to the Elementary and Secondary Art Show Awards that night. And yeah, the kids are so cute. And it's great because you get to see their art on the big screen. On the 23rd of April, I paid a visit to the North Metro Fire Training Center. It's just north of Highway 7, and it's a training facility for firemen. And the reason I went was because the Future Forward Wash Square, their kids in their fire classes were doing their tests. And these tests involve a lot of heat. And it was really cool. So if you've never been there, there's a building that's kind of it's a house, I guess, but it's kind of set up to be like a gas grill. So they have propane is the fuel that they use to make the fires when they're training on how to put them out. So there's one room with this couch that's really a metal grill that you can ignite with propane. And the person in charge just happened to be Chad Tellinger, who's the husband of Tracy Tellinger, who happens to be a former student of mine. And he's a lot older than he was when I had him in class. But he's kind of one of the head dudes there, and he directs the traffic of the whole thing. And you watched all the kids, they're in their gear, and it's very heavy. And so I saw that room, and then they had a room next to it that was actually walled off that was wood, so they don't want that to burn, because they would use this place over and over. And it was a dark room that was kind of a maze, and these kids dress up, and they actually asked me if I wanted to do this, but I said no. And they go in, and they have to navigate through this area that has like sinking floors and whatnot. They had a ceiling that they showed, they lit it up, and it had this flame roll down the ceiling, and they practiced on putting that out. And they also have a car that they can light up over and over again. And they have a tower. They have all kinds of fun stuff there to train. And it's North Metro's, but our kids use it. The City of Westminster uses it too, because they don't have their own facility. So that was really neat. And one thing they do have a lot out there are bull snakes. And the bull snakes were starting to wake up for the season, and that was kind of causing a little tension in some of our folks out there. But bull snakes are not poisonous. I went to the Adams County Mayors and Commissioners Awards at the Westminster City Park Rec Center, and that's where kids, a lot of the kids were our kids that were honored. It was kind of a culmination of, there had been one at Thornton, each city had done their own, and then we had finalists. And the keynote speaker was Lori Poland. And for those of you that might remember the story, most of you probably aren't old enough to remember it, but she was kidnapped in front of her house at the age of 3. She was assaulted and left for dead in an outhouse in the mountains. And somebody found her. And she's, older now, obviously. It's been 40 years. And she tells that story. And she also talks about how it impacted her throughout her life. And so we got to listen to her story, and some of the kids that were there that night getting awards have some stories to tell also. And it was pretty impactful. I also went to the North Glen High School baseball game to watch Sherry put out the first pitch. And one thing that you might also want to note is that Sherry's a North Glen High grad too. So she's had a wonderful career in Adams 12, and she is retiring at the end of the school year, and I wish her the best. We're going to miss her. At the Casa Lida Hope Lunch the next day, Lori Poland was the master of ceremonies for that, and that was honoring court-appointed special advocates. And if you don't know about that, those are people who are volunteers that are assigned to kids who are in the court system, whether their parents are caught up in the court system or they're caught up in the court system, and they're totally volunteer organization. And so it's a great opportunity for people, retired educators, to pursue this activity, because they always need new ones. And they're very rewarding. I do know several folks who have done this, and it's such a reward for them. As you heard, the 5K, 5-star 5K, and yes, I won my age bracket. I don't think there was anybody else in it. Well, but I felt good about it. I mean, I walked really fast. I don't run anymore. I have a knee replacement, so I'm not supposed to. Then I also went to the Westminster Annual Education Dinner, and it was fun talking to some of our counterparts in the other school districts that we share Westminster with, to listen to what's going on in the City of Westminster, Front Range Community College, all these governmental agencies that work together to do great things for our students and to produce citizens who are productive members of Westminster. There's a lot of pride in Westminster. On May 3rd, that was last Saturday, I went to the Scouts Membership Summit, and you'll hear probably from somebody a little bit later, but I was on a panel with another school board member who serves on the board in Littleton, and then a person who was formerly the mayor of Cherry Village. And we just talked about the partnerships that Scouts can have with school districts and whatnot. Sunday, I went to the Lions Club relay races. I don't know if any of you have ever gone to this. I didn't even know they existed, but it's been going on for years. And I thought, I'll just pop over and see what's going on at the stadium. We had over 20 of our elementary schools there. I don't know, somehow or another I missed out on that when my kids were in elementary school. It was a really big deal. And it was a beautiful day, and it was a big track meet for elementary kids, and it was really special. And thanks to the Lions Club, thanks to the City of Thornton for doing that. May 6th signing night. That was last night. Yeah, we had a couple of our students sign to enlist in the armed services, and then we had a lot of students sign to work for various construction. Adolphson and Peterson, Hensel Phelps, JHL, and they all signed their intent, and it was a ceremony. And it was fun to watch it from above. I was on the second floor of Wash Square. The other thing that happened too was that they cut a ribbon for a tiny home. And it's not exactly the tiniest, but it is a tiny home, and the kids build it. And this is the fourth one they've built. Future Forward Wash Square got enough of a donation from a person in the community to build 5 of them. So they do one a year. And then they cut the ribbon, then they find a place for it. And I believe they said this one was going to Salida. And if you look inside of it, it really is a nice little place to habitate. It's got a loft for the bedroom, it's got a kitchen, it's got a bathroom. And, we talk a lot about affordable housing, and, especially for professionals, or for this one particularly for kids who age out of the foster care system, because once they turn 18, they don't get any services anymore. And a lot of kids don't graduate before they're 18, so they're still in high school. So this is also a really great community thing. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention Happy Teacher Appreciation Day. It's every day should be Teacher Appreciation Day, and the things that you do every day, you get recognized one day out of the year. I wish it was more, and I wish we could do more than just say it and send you a card. We were able to do that this year. So anyway, that's my update. So it looks like now we are on board committee liaison reports. We'll start, is there a DAC report?
No.
No. FAC?
The FAC met on the 17th, so yeah, we haven't had a board meeting. Went over the bond spending and MLO spending, and worked on the monitoring report. I think they're presenting to us at the next meeting? No, 2 meetings. Tonight. Totally mean that, tonight. Okay.
Okay, just a summary of the Long Range Planning Committee meeting it was on the 17th. It was the day after our last meeting. We got an update on the kind of a postmortem for the mill levy override, and just talked about some of the, there was some polling as to what were some of the concerns of the voters as far as the mill levy override was concerned. And we also talked about career and technical education engagement and how there's a lot of demand for some of our programs to the point where we have to turn kids away. We're also talking about implementing career and technical education exploration in the middle school. And we talked about work-based learning versus school-based learning. And the work-based learning includes things like internships, apprenticeships, hands-on field work. We also talked about some of our programs of how they could be public-facing, such as auto mechanics, welding, construction, which, as I said, they built a tiny home. And some of the challenges that were concerns, we have an EMT program. However, you have to be 21 to be an EMT, so there's always a gap between the time a kid graduates with EMT training and goes on to becoming an EMT. Sometimes there's a limit of industry partners and something, capacity. So we have wait lists on a lot of our classes, such as welding, construction, the certified nurse assistant. They're full, and they also have wait lists. The thing about CTE also is that it's an opportunity for kids to find a passion. If they're in their regular classes and it's just not something that's of interest to them, and they start thinking about what they want to do with their future, these are opportunities to pave the way for them to land on something that they're going to want to pursue as after they graduate. They also mentioned a school-based enterprise. We had a little discussion about that. That's something that actually generates money to fund the program. Real-world experience. There are concerns about implementing it, like where and how. But some of the things that came up as a possible ideas for school-based enterprise would be a barber shop, car maintenance and detail, a restaurant cafe, a cosmetology, a small business incubator, healthcare related. And then just, there's all kinds of considerations in terms of regulations. They talked about possibilities for where some of these things might be located, like at Bowman or Wash Square. And so it's just a good conversation about how we can move forward with our current technical. So that's my LRPAC report. On to general public comment.
Good evening. The board welcomes public comment to learn about the preferences and concerns of the Adams 12 5-star community. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please use the microphone and state your name and city of residence before beginning your comments. Please give any handouts or information you would like to share with the board to Lee Coca here to my right. A 3-minute timer will be set for each speaker. Please keep an eye on that timer. Speakers will be informed when the time has expired, and we ask that you end your comments at that time. Our first speaker is Keith Maines.
Good evening, board and citizens. I'm speaking on the board policy to allow boys to use girls' bathrooms and to compete with them in sports. One of the school board members in support of this radical gender policy of Adams Square School District referenced a Harvard School of Public Health study which concluded that transgenders are 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted if they're required to use the bathroom of their own gender. The reliability of this study's data is suspect on its face, so listen to what they're saying, and it's implausible. Note that the male transgender teen would be forced to use his own bathroom, right? And so they're saying that he's been sexually assaulted in his own bathroom. That implies that there's homosexual assaults going on in the school's bathroom, according to this study that you referenced. I agree with the previous testimony presented by some here that facts matter. As John Adams said during his defense of the British soldiers charged for murder in the Revolutionary Era's Boston Massacre, he said, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, our dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Wishes, inclinations, and passion are very like the central to this unwise policy. Indeed, if the facts are clearly on the side of opposition to this radical gender policy, which stands against millennia of cultural, religious, and scientific truth and wisdom. If a 6,000-year-old standard is to be abolished, the burden of proof is upon those who would disregard thousands of years of common sense, science, and religion. I asked the board members who favor this policy if I could show you the opposite study and give it, would that change your mind? If I could give you 5 studies, would that change your mind? If I did 10 studies, that would change your mind. And I suspect, unfortunately, the answer is no on that. Because unfortunately, dogmatic belief doesn't bend to truth. I think of the man who believed pigs could fly, and they proved conclusively that they'd had no wings. And his response was, how about that? Pigs can fly without wings. So don't be tied to a philosophy that is certainly not backed up by facts. The other more significant thing about this is the presumption that children are going to be sexually active and the encouragement to do so. To label a child as L, G, B, or T as a child is heinous. I'm trying to conclude all my remarks. I actually have about 3 more paragraphs, and I would like to finish that. But in any case, it's very clearly sexual activity is an adult activity because it has adult consequences and adult responsibilities, as we know. And so the implication of the board
Time has expired.
that they should encourage that is heinous, and there's really so much more.
Our next speaker is Susan Steck.
I won't need 3 minutes. Susan Steck, Brighton. Just, I was listening to everything you guys said, and I appreciate your comment about mental health. I just wanted to kind of put something out there for you to think about over the summer, because I know you've got a break that I'm sure is much earned. First time at one of these, sorry. But my nephew is on the autism spectrum, and I have 2 kids of my own, but honestly, my nephew's my most favorite person in the world. With the policy that's been suggested recently by the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, I just want to know if the school board has been able to make any plans to keep him and other children like him safe, or if there's something that you can kind of maybe think about for the future. And I know you got plenty on your plate and get through the graduations, but just something I just kind of wanted to put out there to kind of get the wheels spinning a little bit. So I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll just say on that piece, we have no plans to be tracking information about students with autism and sharing it with the federal government. I think it would require a change in law, just given privacy and confidentiality rights of students. So for us, we don't plan to change our current practices of maintaining that privacy.
Our next speaker is Rose Ediger.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I was here last meeting, and I want to start again by saying thank you to our board of directors for the time you spend volunteering on behalf of our community and the families that live here and all the kids that live here. This is a big job. You're doing it as volunteers, and you know, as a parent and someone who works, which I probably is all of you, how do you do it? I'm going to look into it because I think it's important and I appreciate that. Last time I spoke also, and just wanted to share again today that so I'm a parent, I have 5 kids, and I have kids currently in the grade school, middle school, and high school in Adams 12, and a recent college grad. And so I think I know children a little bit. I'm one of a large family as well. And I just appreciate everything and the decisions made across our community to get to know each other and to get to know our kids, because each one is special and each one has strengths. And take away those labels, take away those fears that bring you here to share. We don't need to share what's making us scared and fight back against what's making us scared. That hurts our children. Instead, we want to learn to understand each other and to show our care, and to really show up for each other. I wanted to share a quick story about a little town in upstate New York. Upstate New York is not blue or Democrat. And I think when we talk about community, those things don't matter. It's not about ideology, it's about care. This town is Sackett's Harbor. And on March 27th, a mother and her 3 children, who were all in the school system, were deported by ICE, or were grabbed by ICE and sent to a deportation facility in Texas. This town of 1,351 people, they knew each other, and 1,000 people showed up at a rally calling for their community members to come home. You know, the first person that one of those students called from the facility where they were being held was their teacher. So thank you, yes, to our teachers. Absolutely, they make such a difference. And I am here to be your neighbor.
Your time has
Oh,
expired.
Thanks, that's it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Fifthhouse.
Good evening, Mike Pfeifhaus. I currently live in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I want to introduce myself to you. I'm the interim executive director for Scouting Colorado, and we are the local council for Scouting America, serving the greater metro area as well as the Western Slope. We provide programs to over 11,500 youth in our communities, and we serve kids from kindergarten through age 20 in our various programs. In case you're not aware, 7 years ago now, we invited girls to join all of our programs. So we have girls as an opportunity to be in every program we have in Scouting, which is exciting for me as a father of 3 daughters. We have a foundation of leadership, character, citizenship, community service, and much more. And we did bring some materials to share with you this evening that I believe are being passed around. Our goal is to build relationships with our schools, to provide programs to help our families and our students as we can. We want to understand the community needs and to see where we can provide support through those programs. I do want to acknowledge Charlie Botnick here with me this evening. Charlie is our local executive serving all of the communities for your schools. And in closing, just thank you for your time. Thank you what you do for educators and the education world in general, and appreciate all of you.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Our next speaker is Thomas Scoville.
Thomas Scoville, Thornton, Colorado. God save Tabor, and God bless the tax assessor for the county of Adams. I spoke last on your bizarre gender policy where you mandate putting boys in beds with girls. You claim to care for the you claim to care for our gender dysphoric youth. They merit respect, as do we all. But your good intentions are not licensed to meddle with the safety and mental and emotional health of others. You say, the school shall accept the gender identity that each student asserts. You also say students shall have access to the restrooms consistent with their gender identity. However, your piece on locker rooms is garbled by an impossible secrecy requirement. You say gender identity is fluid. It's determined by the individual and can change at any time. Noted. But you say the terms of gender doctrine are evolving and lack consensus of meaning. This is policy drivel. Yet one thing is clear. You say any boy at any time can say he identifies as female. And without questioning, you give him an instant pass to the private spaces you once reserved for girls. You have no requirement for the boy to share this with your staff or for your staff to monitor or assess the situation. Some boys may be sincere when they assert a non-male identity, but others may be into mischief and shenanigans, as youth are wont to be. Because you provide no means for sorting this, male and female signs for restrooms are now superfluous. You are insulting the dignity of girls. You are trashing the privacy they once expected and still deserve. You're creating chaos by wrecking a long-time cultural norm of segregating private spaces by sex. This norm has served us well. It is a threat to no one except those with bad intentions. Please do not let your moral preening get in the way of rescinding this absurd policy. Now, I called out the Adams County tax assessor because I just got my notice in the mail that my assessment's gone down almost 7%. Please don't get in the way of me enjoying this tax break. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kathy Kelly.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Kelly from Westminster, Colorado, and just wanted to address the board to talk to you about Wear Orange. This is an event that we celebrate actually with the Adams 12 School Board for probably the last 7 to 8 years. But since 2013, Moms Demand Action and and Everytown for Gun Safety has called to the community's attention the gun violence that is taking place and how it is impacting particularly students and kids. So I want to just draw to your attention that 4.6 million children live in homes with guns that are unlocked and loaded. In Colorado, however, it is the law that homes with children in them are required to have guns that are stored safely and properly so that kids are protected. Guns affect students in a number of different ways, but in particular in Colorado, 46% of the gun deaths of students are due to suicides and 50% are homicides. And so I just want you to keep those numbers in mind. We know that all school districts are impacted by gun violence. We just want to draw to your attention the importance of that. Nationwide, 43 children are killed by guns each year, and 17,000 are shot and wounded. So gun violence is real, and it's particularly important to students. And I thank you for celebrating or acknowledging Wear Orange, which is a National Gun Violence Awareness Proclamation and Day that we celebrate on June 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and we'll be discussing that resolution down the road on our agenda.
Our next speaker is Laura Garcia Pasco.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Laura, Westminster, and I'm here tonight as a deeply concerned community member and parent. I'm alarmed by the increasingly political direction this board is taking. Our school board should be focused on student outcomes, not federal elections. But lately, we've heard rhetoric from the dais that sounds more like campaign speeches than conversations about kids. Some members have gone so far as to publicly complain about the federal administration simply because their candidate didn't win. That is not the job you were elected to do. Let's all talk about the elephant in the room. One board member is actively running for political office, and another is a paid lobbyist. That's not inherently wrong, but it raises questions, serious questions, about where their priorities lie. Are they here to serve the students or to score political points? School boards are supposed to be nonpartisan. You are supposed to rise above personal agendas and focus on things that actually impact students, improving test scores, supporting teachers, and making our schools safe and welcoming for every child. When this board becomes a platform for political messaging, our kids lose. We need to demand better because our students, teachers, and community deserves leaders who put education, not ideology, first. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Vicky Quintavalle.
Hi, my name is Vicki, and thank you for letting me speak. I have 30 years experience working with children and people with disabilities. I have an amazing adult son and an angel of a niece. We are role models. We are who the people look to, who the children look to make decisions. We should be teaching children to love themselves and love their community. We need to be listening to each other, whether we agree or disagree. I have always and will always come from a place of love and respect for every human being. Every person in this room took time out of their day to come here because they believe that the children are important and they care. Every person has unique skills, opinions, and experiences. We can all learn from each other and teach the children to do the same. As adults, we can choose to teach children to respect each other. if we do the same. We can choose to teach children to love and be kind, or we can teach them to hate and divide and commit crimes when they disagree with someone. Sadly, in Colorado, we have chosen to teach children how to hate themselves and each other. The people we put in charge choose not to listen to us and not to listen to the children. There was a bill in the Senate of Colorado where 80% of the 700 people testifying objected to it. It passed anyway, because they're not listening. It seems the school board is doing the same. When you make rules based on the 0.6% of the population that are transgender, do you ask the other 99.4% how that makes them feel? When you insult straight white males, do you ask the little boys how that makes them feel? Have you asked the little girls how they feel when they go into a bathroom and there is a biological boy watching them or listening to them? I believe we need to respect and love all children and not just a select few that further our political agenda. There's an epidemic of overdoses among our youth and an epidemic of violent crimes, as the last person spoke about the gun violence, committed by our youth. Guns don't kill people, people do. We do not have to wonder why this is happening. We can look to ourselves. What are we teaching these children? We are teaching them to hate themselves and to hate each other. We are teaching them that they are not okay the way they are. We are teaching them that crime pays. The criminals have more rights than victims. I watched a video the other day where a little girl was giving the finger to a camera on a Tesla as the mother vandalized the car. This is what we are teaching our children: division and hate. Every person in this room has a chance to make a decision from this day forward to spread love or to spread hate. I will choose love, and I will choose to not stop fighting for our children, and I hope that you choose the same. Thank you.
All right, for this next item, I'm going to actually come down there. Elena Zuniga. Hi, nice to meet you. I want to share with everybody here today why I'm doing this. So I'm going to kind of read something that was written, but on April 17th, 2025, at around 11 a.m., Campus Security Officer Elena Zuniga was working in the cafeteria with kindergarten at Thunder Vista K-8. Elena noticed a kindergarten student's face was turning red and appeared panicked. Elena walked over to the student and saw he was grabbing at his throat and his face was changing from red to blue. Was that you? You want to come up here too? And what's your name?
Max.
CSO Elena quickly reacted to the choking cues and began performing the Heimlich maneuver on the student, Max, dislodging the food. However, the kindergartner continued to swallow the piece of food, so he was escorted to the nurse, where Elena and the school nurse were able to remove all food items from the student's mouth completely. The student's parents, Max's parents, were contacted, and no medical attention was needed due to Elena's quick and life-saving actions and follow-up. Max, I see you have a friend with you. Can you show everybody what Elena did for you when you were choking on your friend there?
She did 2 big puffs on me to stop me from choking, and it actually worked.
So we want to recognize that. That is very much an act of heroism, and it's something that none of us ever want to have to do, but we're so glad that you were there that day. Thank you. Thank you, Max's parents, for bringing him here tonight, too. Okay, and thank you, Elena. Okay, mill levy oversight presentation, 5C expenditures. I see Gina with a few friends. Okay, Aaron.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Aaron Oberg, Director of Finance, and we're here to share this mill levy override presentation just quickly with you. This is the presentation that gets shared with our FAC team, and our FAC team will take right over after I just do a quick brief introduction of this presentation that we provide to them. You've all seen this presentation before. It is how the 5C monies were originally intended to be spent, and then every budget year, we reaffirm how we spend these funds. So it is done, and then as part of the annual budgeting process, we then appropriate funds for specific purposes. And each one of these next slides, I'll touch on the spending that is allocated to each of the components. But the members of the committee who listen to the presentation and listen to the reports from Learning Services and from IT, as well as from Finance, want to address a couple of very specific items with you tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to them. You didn't want to hear from Finance, you want to hear from your committee. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Hello, board members. This is she.
Kelly Bergstrom as well.
So we talk about these 6 areas during our FAC meetings. 21st century learners and diverse learning outside the classroom. Let me go through this quickly. Okay. This is 21st century learners. And it's about update technology devices, and Kelly will share more later. And this one is diverse learning. I would like to share some highlights in this area as a parent. So when my son first started selecting courses in middle school, he didn't know what to do. So I told him, you just pick what interests you most and explore as much as provided. And he did it. And when it was time for him to apply for college, it was easy for him to make the decision on the major. So I'm glad the funding support can make this happen.
Just want to build a little bit on what Ji has shared with you as well. We can see the expansion of the career and technical education as well. The programs offered at the Future Forward campus are inspiring and exciting to see. You can read the stories and highlights from the participants and see how they've benefited from those programs. So it's evidence of where the 5C money is going. And then additionally, just to talk a little bit about the implementation of technology and programs in the classroom, I personally have watched my middle schooler use more software, whether it be math tools, video editing software, podcasts, science projects. It's been absolutely amazing to see that money being used in the classrooms as well, and I've seen it as a parent. So the FAC has found that the 5C funds were being used as intended and expected, and we appreciate all that the board has done to further that and prepare our students for the future.
Any questions from board members?
Thank you. Okay. All right. Next, safety and security and risk assessment update. We have Bo, I see Aaron Marquez, and I see Sarah. And do we have Anthony and?
You do, and Olivia.
Olivia. All right, guys.
Perhaps as Bo was pulling this up, I'll just do a brief intro in noting that there are occasions, as you know, that we sometimes talk about specific students of concern in our system, usually on the threat side. And then on occasion, I'll give you updates about students who have considered suicide or taking steps to complete suicide. I'll just note that the data that we're going to present tonight is more aggregate and high level because of privacy interests. We won't get into any individual cases or groups of cases tonight. But if you had that kind of interest, we could always set an executive session for a later date to dig into those things deeper.
Thank you, Superintendent. My comments just became briefer because I was going to include that, so I appreciate that. Board members, we're really appreciative of the time with you tonight to give you an update on what you've heard us refer to before as a web of safety. And that's when we think about safety in Adams 12, we think about it through a number of interconnected parts. So you're going to hear this evening from folks from our crisis and prevention team. You'll hear an update from threat assessment and then some overall safety and security. And our purpose tonight is to give you kind of a current state picture, as Chris mentioned, at a high aggregate level, and to talk about work that we've done to continue to iterate and get better. I think in the safety and security space, that's a mantra and an axiom that we live by, is as much as we think about and are proud of as a system, there is always room to get better, always new data to respond to, and always new things for us to improve on to ensure we're doing everything we can to keep our school and our district safe and secure. So you're going to hear first from our crisis prevention team. They're going to give you some information around our suicide risk assessment data. Then you'll hear some information around threat assessment, and then we'll give you kind of an overall picture about work we're doing in the safety security space across the district. I'll let each of my colleagues introduce themselves to you as they work through this, and I want you to know, because all of this is interconnected, we've kind of saved the questions for the end because we're sure you'll see the connections as well.
Thank you, Bo. Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're excited to share some of the work that we're doing. My name is Sarah Hunter. This will be my 24th year in the district. I was a longtime social worker in our schools and then have been in this current role as prevention and crisis recovery coordinator for 9 years. Alongside Aaron Marquez, who will speak after me. I guess I need to put our slide deck up. Oh, it is the deck. Oh, gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm like confusing myself. Okay, sorry. So this is a comprehensive suicide prevention approach through the Suicide Prevention and Resource Center that was developed sorry, I'm going to take my glasses off, to recognize the vital role that schools play in supporting students' mental health and well-being. Here in Adams 12, Aaron and I have worked hard to implement and strengthen the systems, supports, and partnerships aligned with these 9 strategies. We collaborate closely with students, families, and community partners. This framework has been developed from the SPRC, the JED Foundation, and inspired by our U.S. Air Force suicide prevention program. When we think about our current reality, what we know is staff in schools are working hard to make connections with students and students in crisis, We train and support our schools to support students in need. As we review these statistics in the next few slides, I want to take a moment to honor not only the lives that we've lost, but those who are struggling or at risk. that beyond every number is a real person, a story, and a life that matters. When you take a look at this slide, take a moment to reflect on the key point. When individuals are connected to help, their chances of recovery increase significantly. Our goal is to reach and support as many students as possible by fostering a culture of reporting and a strong sense of belonging. When students feel seen, heard, and valued, they are more likely to seek help and more likely to thrive. This next slide is the latest or the most up-to-date statistics on fatalities in Colorado to suicide from 2023. And it is important to keep in mind that not only do we see an impact from student loss, but we also see an impact from parents and caregiver loss in our community. What we know is suicide rates among youth have stabilized since 2014 with a slight decrease. Some would say it's not statistically significant, but we believe it is significant because any life saved is important, and we will honor that. This is a year-over-year overview of all of our suicide risk assessments. From 2014 to 2019, we experienced a 120% increase in risk assessments. This effort, the reason for this increase, we believe, is because we implemented a gatekeeper training for all staff. So all staff was learning the signs and what to look for in both staff and youth, and how to get them to help. We enhanced our mental health and counseling training, and we expanded access to mental health services. During those pandemic years, we observed a decrease in school assessments. This was largely due to being physically at home and having less direct access to school-based supports. However, we saw an increase in hospitalizations and community mental health responses. And this was the time where Children's Hospital declared a state of emergency due to the youth crisis of mental health. As we've returned post-pandemic and been returned to in-person learning, we've seen these numbers stabilize and get back to pre-pandemic numbers. The total number of SRAs that our providers have done are 1,007. And then you see the 94 is a third-party referral. That's done by an outside therapist or hospitalization. Those numbers might be a little low just due to self-reporting, and sometimes people want their privacy, and that's okay. And so we don't know all of those numbers. This next slide talks about our numbers, SRA by school type, by school level, and type. So as you can see in elementary, we have the highest number of screeners. Young students are still developing their emotion regulation skills at this age. Without language or tools to express their distress, they sometimes use statements like, "I want to die," as a way to communicate their overwhelming feelings. We take every statement seriously and use these moments as opportunities to teach healthy coping strategies and emotional expression. Although it is still low, we do see kids at a young age with suicidal ideation, and the sooner we can get to them and get them to the support, the better. Middle school, we see the highest number overall. It tends to be developmentally appropriate to engage with their peers and talk with their peers about their problems and what's happening in their lives, and they tend to be a little bit more open. And so then there's a lot more culture of reporting to get support from staff. We start to see a growing culture of students helping connect their friends, and so we tend to see an increase in that age group. And then at the high school, we see the highest level of full assessment, where we tend to see the most severe cases, where the highest rates of suicidality. This includes highly expressed intent, ideation, and a plan. And this reflects both increased acuity and a need for more intensive intervention and support. I'm going to pass it to Erin, and she's going to talk about more of what we do to support our schools.
Thank you. Good evening. So I wanted to paint a picture of what we mean when we talk about suicide prevention. And so here in Adams 12, we provide a robust suicide prevention approach that spans a continuum from upstream prevention to intervention to postvention. When we talk about upstream prevention, we're really talking about building resiliency and fostering protective factors. And one way we do that is through the implementation of Sources of Strength, which is a program that it's peer-led wellness program where students are strengthening their protective factors, such as connectedness, a sense of belonging, fostering hope, help-seeking behaviors. And so all of those in turn reduce the risk for suicide and promote mental health. We also offer Riding the Waves, which is a 5th grade curriculum that is designed to build coping strategies, emotional awareness, and resiliency in our students as they transition to middle school. And as Sarah had just reviewed, the previous data specifically demonstrates, and also research would back this up as well, is that middle school is a critical period, and students in middle school often report the highest levels of suicidal ideation. And so not quite yet, sorry. And so the hope for the implementation of Riding the Waves is to proactively help build students' skills to navigate stress, to recognize when a friend might be in need, and connect themselves or others to help. And then also, we provide social-emotional skill instruction in a comprehensive universal approach, and that's really designed to foster students' competencies in the areas of self-awareness and self-management, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And then when we think about intervention, we are focused on providing system awareness around how do I recognize when somebody might be at risk, right, or experiencing psychological distress, and how do I intervene and support them? And so Signs of Suicide is offered in the middle school and high schools, and really is premised on building students' skills to be able to act, which is to acknowledge when someone might be experiencing suicidal ideation, demonstrate care and concern, and then connect them to help. And so that's one of the programs we use to foster that as well. And then when we're concerned about a student, we have a robust and comprehensive risk assessment process, which I'll go into depth on the next slide. And then in our postvention efforts, this is intended to be responsive when we've experienced a loss, to really ensure that we're providing supportive help so that our community can heal, to reduce risk of additional loss, and then to make sure that our students and staff are connected to the mental health resources they need so that they can recover. And we have a really robust crisis team that supports this process and this intervention effort when needed. So what is a suicide risk assessment? Again, it's a very comprehensive approach that is designed to support students when we suspect that they might be experiencing suicidal despair. And so it's a team approach. And so we have trained mental health providers and counselors who work together to provide a comprehensive intervention to determine what is the need, right? What level of intervention does that student need? And then what is the support that we should put in place to help them with that recovery process? We always partner with our caregivers to ensure that we're working together to identify, like I said, those needs, think about ways to support them, and then make sure that we're working in collaboration to do that. And we also work with outside stakeholders, or, well, there's some internal stakeholders, so maybe it's the administration or other educators that are supporting that student, and then also maybe outside stakeholders such as counselors or other people that are supporting the student in this recovery process, so that we can support that care coordination and make sure that they have the support that they need. And then it's important to acknowledge that a suicide risk assessment is a snapshot in time. And so suicidality is episodic, and it can fluctuate over the days and weeks after that initial assessment. And so it's essential that our teams are aware and connecting with those students and making sure that we're providing the ongoing support and resources so that they can recover. And the recovery which is highlighted up there, the recovery plan and support plan, that's really the catalyst or the tool that's driving those interventions, right? We're making sure that we're using that to document that ongoing monitoring, to communicate what's going on, and then to develop interventions or adjust those interventions based on where that kiddo is at in the assessment process. And then this last slide, we're talking about protective factors. And so the Healthy Kids Survey, this is pulled from the 2023 Healthy Kids Survey, is one way that we are able to center student voice, in addition to our Panorama student survey, which helps us really assess where the students are at or what their current experience is, and then helps us then decide, what's going well, what do we want to keep doing in the sense of intervention and support, where are things that we might want to think about refining, and what might we want to add to continue to support our students. All right, I'm going to pass it to Olivia, and then I'll be back in a moment to talk about some of our trends together.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name's Olivia. I'm the Behavioral Threat Assessment Coordinator for the district. I am grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the world of threat assessment, which can seem like an ominous and intimidating place. I'm going to start with reviewing some of the foundations and just our process around threat assessment. Then we'll get into some of the data and the trends that we're seeing across the district. So I want to start off with just saying that threat assessment is really grounded in the idea that a concerning behavior is an opportunity for connection and support. So a concerning behavior does not immediately label someone as a threat. It's really an opportunity to see where are the gaps in supporting these students and how can we do better in getting those interventions to them. So threat assessment in general is a proactive and evidence-based process that's geared towards identifying and assessing situations in which an individual might pose a risk of harm to another person. So we really look at this as an investigative process. We want a holistic understanding of our student to really create an individualized plan of support to meet them where they're at, meet their needs, to ensure the safety and support of the students that are impacted and also the student that may have made the threat. Something that we are really proud of is that last year we introduced a new reporting platform called Raptor Student Safe. This platform has really helped with improving the efficiency around reporting. It's helped with consistency across the district and really improved our monitoring and follow-up. The system just really helps with ease of reporting and I think has been beneficial for the schools for sure. So as I mentioned, the goal of threat assessment is to create a safe and supportive learning environment for all. The best way to do this is with a multidisciplinary approach. That is best practice in the world of threat assessment. As you can see up here, we have several stakeholders that we work with, and I work with many of them on a daily basis. The multidisciplinary approach helps us with decreasing bias, really bringing diverse perspectives to the room, and helps with creating that comprehensive support plan. We want to have the experts in the room. So if we have a kiddo that has an IEP, I am not the expert on IEPs. So we need to have school personnel or district personnel who are the experts in that area to make sure that we're following those guidelines and supporting those students in that way. We're also pretty proud. We are working really hard on developing relationships with our community partners. This has really helped increase our resource pool for our students, reduced barriers in accessing those resources, and it just helps meeting with people in the field to see what they're seeing across the state, see what's working for them, what's not, and really kind of aligning those practices. So before we get into the data, I just want to start with how do we identify what a threat is, right? What kind of starts this process? So a threat is just an expression of the potential to cause harm. So that can be verbal, that can be written, or that can be behavioral. When an alleged threat is made, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone poses a threat. There's a difference between making and posing. So our first step is conducting a screen. A screen is really used to make that determination of, does this individual pose a threat? When we feel that that individual may pose a threat, or we have high concern for risk, or we just feel like we need more information to really determine that level of risk, we'll move into a full threat assessment. So this is more of a comprehensive deep dive into the student's history. That can be mental health, IEP, academic history, all of those different pieces that will give us a better understanding of that student as a whole, so that we can better look at that alleged threat, and then it helps us with really creating that comprehensive support plan. Whether you are doing a full or doing a screen, there's always going to be a support and management plan. They'll look different. Screens might be a little lower level, and then the fulls will be more intensive, but there's always that support plan. I also want to note that moving to a full threat assessment does not just mean the student is violent, right? We really look at it as that deeper investigation to better support the student, the other students, and the whole community. So moving into our data, first we're going to look at screens and fulls by school year. As you can see, the 2023-2024 school year, it looks a bit different than our other years. I can't really speak to exactly what that is from, but I can say that that is when we were making the transition from our old reporting platform to our new one. And as you can see, we jumped back up this year with more, but the numbers are pretty consistent with our 2022-2023 school year, with less fulls this school year. I think that having this new reporting platform has really helped with increasing our numbers. Just because we see an increase doesn't mean there's an increase in violent behaviors in our schools. We're really working on promoting a positive culture of reporting, because if we can notice this early and have earlier interventions, then this will help down the line before things maybe escalate to those violent behaviors. Next, we have it broken out by school level for this school year. And as you can see, our elementary schools have the highest number. And that might seem a bit shocking. It was for me when I first saw it. So I did reach out to some other districts, and it seems that that trend is consistent across other districts. So it's not just within ours. We're seeing that with middle school following closely behind. As you can see, elementary schools are mostly screens, and kind of to what Sarah and Aaron were saying earlier, that's when kiddos are learning how to manage their feelings. They're having really big feelings, and so there might be some impulsive frustrations that are expressed. But again, I think it shows that positive culture of reporting, that our elementary schools are really focused on early intervention, making sure we're serving our students. So as you see, we get down to high school and it's dropping. So hopefully that's around those earlier interventions and support. As you will see, the middle school and high school have most of the fulls. Going back to what I was just saying, when we're in middle and high school, we have a longer history of students' behaviors. And so that deep dive is really important because we have all of this data to look at. The threat is a snapshot in time, but their entire history of support and behaviors is important context when determining risk. And here it's broken out by school level, again, just comparing to 2023-2024 school year. As already mentioned, there was an increase in our numbers this year, but the trend remains pretty consistent. And so just to give you some percentage increases along with those graphs, we saw a 54% increase in threat assessments for elementary schools, 53% increase for middle schools, and 62% increase for high schools. Something when I began this role that I really made a priority was building relationships with our schools. I think the more that they see me as a support in this process, the more that we build that trust, the more that they know I'm available for consultation, that our teams are available for consultation, I think the more comfortable they feel with reporting, with creating these plans, and with the assessment in general. I think it increases our communication and, again, our consistency across the district. We really want our schools to feel like the district has their back, and so that's been a big priority for me. And while we see these large increases in numbers, another priority for us is really ensuring that we have ongoing comprehensive training for our school-based teams and for our district personnel. We want to make sure that they do feel confident in making these decisions and doing these assessments and for carrying out these management plans, because in reality, the schools are the ones who are following up, who are enforcing these things and making sure that the supports are reaching our students.
This one together. Yeah. So as we look through our data, what we realize is there's a lot of crossover. And so just to stamp some of what we've learned as we did that data dig and review is that student well-being is a core priority, right? And so we aim to always respond in a swift manner and quick manner, but also with care and concern. Fostering systems and structures that are proactive is always going to be our goal, right? So we're going to want to create systems in a culture where students are able to report and feel connected so that we can respond in a responsible way. And then collaboration is key. So strong partnerships allow for us to respond more effectively. And as we think about the work that we're doing, what we want to continue and what we want to enhance or grow our work in, we've highlighted this on the slide here. Specific to suicide risk assessments, we want to continue to think about how are we supporting our students who have that pervasive and chronic suicidality and may need a higher level of care or more intervention. And so how can we provide our system with guidance to effectively support that? Implementing a tiered training plan, which would go along with that first goal, in ensuring that our system has the skills, the current data, and knowledge to be able to effectively support our students when they're experiencing suicidal despair. And then we often hear from our students, specifically in the high school level, around we want to talk more about mental health. We want to understand mental health more, and we want to have a say, right? It's our current, it's our reality. You're designing things for us, and we want to be part of that work. And so to center their voice and allow them to be part of the work, we are going to create a mental health advisory committee with our high school students, and we're really looking forward to working alongside them to develop some great interventions and support. And then a revitalization and strengthening of our community partners. We've had lots of community partners come and go in the sense of how can we support you all, how can we partner with you. Today we had the opportunity to meet with our co-responders for Northglenn, Westminster, and Thornton to talk about what are ways that you're supporting the community and our students and families, and how can we partner with you in that space, and hope to do that with our behavioral health departments, some of our Adams County and Broomfield County health departments, and so that is our next steps for the 25-26 school year.
And then in terms of threat assessment, like I mentioned, comprehensive threat assessment and management training for school and district personnel. I'm relatively new to the role, and so have really been learning what is being provided and what are our gaps. While building those relationships with our schools, asking them, what do you need that you're not getting? And really putting that into this comprehensive training for them. And then supporting our charter schools with aligning our protocols and our processes. I have spoken of this new reporting platform a million times and spoken of consistency across the district, and so that's a big goal, and making sure that the charter schools are also feeling supported.
Hello, everybody. My name's Anthony Muck, the Director of Safety and Security. So these guys definitely talked a lot more about data. I'm going to talk about some more of the trainings and all that we've brought into the district, and hopefully not only for the internal team, our Superintendent Crisis Response Group, which I'll talk about more, but also the security team and then our campus security officers. Starting off with the Superintendent Crisis Response Group. So this was originally formed back in 2022. It was with cabinet level members and other members throughout the district, and the purpose behind it was to review previous incidents. Are we providing the best for our schools, our students, staff, and community? Is our response adequate? Are we just doing enough to help everybody out? We've since evolved, and that group has shifted a little bit as far as individuals involved, but we have members from our mental health team, communications team, some executive directors, and then individuals from safety and security. Just continuing on with this group, we've started to do trainings once in the first semester and once in the second semester. First semester, we were able to get members from the cabinet level as well as members of this group together and really work through a tabletop exercise, focusing on just everybody in a group or in one room, talking through how we would work through this if this were to happen in Adams 12, who would expect what roles, how we would progress through, and how we can continue to evolve and better ourselves as a system. Second semester, we were able to move into a little bit of a larger tabletop scenario where we broke out into multiple rooms. We limited communication to cell phones just by texting, radios, and Google Meets, just really trying to add some simulated stressors into there and really work through it. Our goal, again, is to try and push ourselves to find where we have weaknesses, where we also have some really good strengths, and how we can build upon those. Real quick lesson that myself and Deputy Superintendent Fobert learned immediately following this tabletop scenario was when you have multiple people all working a tabletop exercise, you should let the superintendent know. Because when he's off site and freaks out and starts calling everybody, we don't know that he's was not aware. So we apologize, but definitely a quick lesson learned on that one. So also from this group, as we continue to grow and expand, we had found that though we were doing a good job, we needed to, as a whole, bring in an after-action summary, get the group together, those who were directly involved in the incident, sit everybody down in a room, and again, work through what has worked well, what has not worked well, how can we better our response and improve ourselves, as well as how can we provide for the staff and students. So this has definitely been a huge learning for us. Everything's documented, so we can go back, review each one of these, and again, just continue to grow and provide a better response for our schools. Throughout the learning, we've also realized that we need to get into the schools more and start having more tabletop lessons with our school staff, really starting from something very minimal and working up through larger events. You know, each one of these schools has an incident, and it's the first for them sometimes. Sometimes it's just unique and different. And so how can we get into the schools, and how can we continue to provide training to them? Another learning is how can we just get words out and get communication out to them? So we created a safety and security newsletter with just little how-tos, need-to-knows, and any reminders and updates that goes out to all staff, not just administrators or office staff. We really wanted to get to the teachers as well and just say, hey, during events, here's what you can expect, here's how we're doing stuff, here's how we're working through, just so that they have an understanding. As a team, as a security department team, we have realized through a lot of these trainings that we just need to attend more trainings and be getting out there, learning more, hearing more. What can we bring back to Adams 12 that is being done across the country? How can we continue to advance ourselves? We are continuing with meetings with the Learning Services Department. We meet monthly with them just to go over any trends that they're seeing, any guidance that they have from their side, and then we also bring ours. So those meetings have been very successful and have led to a lot of future work that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. But then as we were going through as well, we had noticed that through a lot of this, our emergency operations plan was a bit outdated. And so we have taken that because of our findings and our continuous training. And we're going to revise that to get that drafted. Hopefully have a draft version to you guys by the fall to review. But again, this is just as we continue to do these tabletop exercises, we're finding that we have this need, and we're going to continue to develop and advance from there. Again, as a security team, we have school security liaisons, or you'll hear them called SSLs out in the schools. These individuals, it's 3 individuals that are responsible for basically working with our elementary schools to help provide any type of trainings, help provide a safe and secure environment, just be visible out there. This year alone, we were able to get them combined 96 hours of training. This training was successful and made successful for us through partnerships with the DeAngelis Center. If you guys haven't heard of the DeAngelis Center, it's definitely a great center. They offer a ton of trainings, school-related trainings. So we were able to get our team through a crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour training working through any type of scenario from a dysregulated student or parent all the way through the basics of just speaking with somebody. Great training. They went through de-escalation, active shooter response training, and everybody on the team is certified by the National Association of School Resource Officers training, which is the same equivalent or the same training that our school SROs have received. And then lastly, we do train with our campus security officers. We get to train with them 4 times a year, and we really focused on bringing training from outside speakers and outside trainings, again with the DeAngelis Center. About a month and a half ago, we were able to have Mr. DeAngelis and some first responders that responded to Columbine come over and speak about that and give a debrief. We opened that up also to school admin, teachers, office staff that could join on that day. We had a really good turnout, and people left with really good remarks, just saying that they felt that it was a really good training. So it was nice to have them. We also received training from our local law enforcement. Westminster PD was able to provide some individuals for gangs and graffiti training. We've provided de-escalation training, as well as working with our internal special education department, just trying to get these individuals training that is useful and that would help when they're addressing students at the school and know what to look for and how to help them the best. And then moving forward, 25-26 school year, About 3 weeks ago, we started a working group with all of our charter schools. The goal of that is to enhance not only our collaboration and communication with our charter schools, but also see what else we can do to help them. How can we provide for them? How can we assist them during a crisis they may have? And really just revamping that relationship. As I spoke earlier, we're working on our emergency operation plans, but we're also going to branch that out into the schools. The school ones are also a bit outdated, so we want to, each school has its own uniqueness to it, whether it's based on the community, the layout, or whatever else is going on. So we really want to focus on getting into the schools and working with the leadership over there to provide them with a solid emergency operating plan. The biggest ask we've heard from the schools when we've been out and spoke to them is reunification training. They want to know what it looks like, how does it work, what is their responsibility during this. So we're really going to focus next year on getting that out and opening that up to schools so that they can see what it looks like and how it works and understand, or at least have an understanding of what might be coming. And then again, just continuing to grow and learn and bring as much as we can back to Adams 12 and just continue to provide a great service to everybody. Are we asking questions? Questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Well, I always have questions. I guess my first question is, and I also have some comments. I really like that we're being proactive about potential threat assessments. And I'm looking at Mr. Griffin over there because he used to be my son's principal, and so he's very familiar with him. And I'm sure that my son has said and done some things that may have warranted, let's have a quick conversation. But that's kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask is, what's the nature of an elementary level threat assessment? So just walk me through how a conversation like that might go.
Might go with the student, parents,
With
all
the
of the above.
All of the above.
Okay, talked myself into that one. So I mean, it's relatively difficult to say because, the school-based threat assessment teams are the ones there in the moment. They're speaking with the student, but they really do come from a place of curiosity and compassion. They want to know, why did you say what you said? What were you feeling when you said what you said? What did you mean by that? Really asking those questions to better see where they're at emotionally in that moment. Maybe they need to take a break, come back to it, have some time to really regulate more, and then they can reflect better on it. And then just based on whatever they learn in that, the school will do sometimes like a re-entry meeting or just a meeting with parents and student to go over the plan that they created for them to make sure parents think this is meeting their needs, or maybe they have feedback on they're seeing different things, and just provide that feedback to the school. Typically almost always there will be an interview with the student and with parents. So the interview with parents kind of helps us see, is this behavior happening at home too? Is it just at school? What are the factors that are influencing this behavior? And is this the student's baseline? Do we need to kind of track this and see if this behavior is continuing, escalating, or getting better? That also helps us know what interventions are working for that student. I don't know if that kind of answers.
That helps, thank you. Okay. The next kind of observation I have is, could you remind me again what the suicide percentage is in Colorado among the two different youth populations, and of where we are in Adams 12 with that same percentage?
I'd probably have to get back to you where we are.
Okay.
But we have, sorry. So youth 10 to 18 make up 4.7%, and youth 19 to 24 is 8.2%.
Okay. And if I remember correct, we did have a chart somewhere talking about that, and our level is the chart that I recall seeing towards the very beginning was a little on par with that, I believe. But yeah, if I could get That would be good data to
Yep,
have.
so I did not share any student loss
Okay.
in our data, but
Yeah.
we can get that. too.
But suicide attempts, you shared.
Nope, just
Or-
risk assessments.
Okay, risk assessments.
So
Okay,
how
thank
we've
you.
assessed students with suicidality.
Yeah. So an ounce of prevention, right? The next, I guess I just want to make a comment that it's very difficult to seek and receive mental health resources right now. So I'm greatly appreciative of Adams 12 for doing these things to be proactive and work with students from the get-go, because it's not necessarily a situation where they can easily go out and get those resources elsewhere. We have a lot of nonprofit groups that try to fill that gap, but nobody's really able to fill that gap right now. I know even at CU Boulder, where I work, we have a 6-month waiting list for psychiatric or psychological or counselor services, and that is with insurance. So you can only imagine how that situation might be if you have a child and you do not have reliable insurance, or, work-provided insurance, how that might be trying to get that out of pocket. So the schools, my point is that districts are sort of being forced to step in here and be that level of prevention. And it just seems like a great, it's another burden kind of placed on the backs of public schools, but I appreciate everything we do to handle that burden in order to protect our kids.
I want to start by saying thank you for all the amazing work that you do and continue to do. You have a lot of proactive ideas and things to keep moving that progress. However, I have a couple questions. To Director Battistelli's point, when you do that threat assessment with a child, oftentimes it's another child or adult that has reported that. What supports do we offer for those children?
That is a great question, and that is part of that response and support planning. I like to look at that support planning as, impact versus intent. And so the intent of that is more the student who made that threat. We're focused on their intent for their support plan. The impact, that's gonna kind of come over to the impacted parties. School personnel will meet with both families. If there's a direct threat to another student, district policy says that the school is required to notify the parent of that student. That can be a really difficult conversation, but they are always included in that. While we can't say what interventions we're doing with the student who made that threat, we can give examples and we can ask, what do you feel like your student needs to feel supported in school? What do you feel is missing? Or your kid best. How are they feeling about this? And how can they feel better supported by us to maybe come back to school or to be around this other student?
So if I'm just understanding correctly, so if the student makes, say, a credible threat, then you have that conversation with that student, their family, and let's say like the victim's family. If it was not a credible threat, is there also a conversation with that other student?
Yes.
Okay.
If there is a threat directed to a specific student, their family is notified.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that.
Interject just on the threat assessment piece here, if we can. So earlier, the data was shared about how much we've seen an increase in especially screening pieces. And although there is a piece there that we're unpacking as a district around what's that telling us about what we need to invest in terms of what our classrooms and schools are like as far as predictable, inviting, connected, more of those preventative pieces. It's also a celebration that we're digging in and forming relationships very early on. And so even though the threat assessment process has this pure piece around credible or not, posing or not, the conversations that's had with the victim, the alleged threat, it always is about what kind of safety measures preventative measures, supportive measures can we put in place? What kind of conversations and relationships do we need to start to develop with families? So it's not necessarily a bad thing that we formalize conversations around understanding students and building relationships with family early on in meaningful ways and starting to get data that helps guide and inform the work we do with kids each and every day, both academically and behaviorally. But in every case, whether you are the accuser or the accused, there's information we have there and things we want to and must follow up on to ensure that school is a place where students feel safe, seen, connected, and have the supports they need. So it's a lot more than just this pose or not. It's all about developing relationships, developing plans of support for all students.
I think that's really fantastic. Thank you for sharing that additional context. My next question is really around, well, actually, I should start by sharing, I met with a group of students at one of the local high schools with one of their project presentations, and they specifically focused on mental health. And one of the things that they had shared was there's a lot of things that are out there for support. It's not what we want. It's not what we need. We want walks. We want journaling. We want music time, all of those things. And so it was really exciting to me to hear that you're going to start that advisory committee because they are so excited to help and kind of break that stigma around mental health. And I think, you know, they're a school that's definitely been impacted a lot this year. So thank you for leaning in and making their voices heard. I mean, you guys are paving the way by example, and it's fantastic. One of the things that I took away, though, from that meeting with students was it is an incredibly heavy burden to place on children to identify and report other students' mental health struggles. And I am concerned because I have seen it time and time again where the student that is reporting it is not a student that is being supported appropriately because they don't feel like they are the ones struggling. Their focus is on my friend is having these tendencies. They're the ones that need help. I don't want to take away from that, and we're leaving that other person behind. And I am increasingly worried as we have more of these initiatives and programs and, you know, things of training them on what to be on the lookout for. I mean, there was a recent article published locally around a workplace where employees were saying, it is not my job to identify that. So I am concerned that we are now putting that burden on students as young as elementary school. So can we talk a little bit about maybe some of the supports for the reporting student?
Yes, that's a really good point. And so anytime in our training, we talk a lot with our providers around how to support the person who shared the information with you. I think like what we know is when we train kids on like suicide prevention in any way, whether it's a culture of how to help a friend when they're having a hard time, we know that they're 4 times more likely to talk with youth than they are adults. So we want to continue to teach them how to talk to other people and get the support, whether it's parents and then teaching parents how to access the school to get them to support. Safe to Tell is also a really great way, which we follow up on those Safe to Tells when it comes to suicide prevention or suicide, any sort of depression or self-harm. Aaron and I are following up with the school within 24 or 48 hours to make sure that those kids are talked to and connected with. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that is a space that we could get even better at, is how to talk with kids who are reporting and connecting their friends to help, and just gaining a better understanding.
That would be amazing, because I know like there's a social media trend. I have a high school student, a middle school student, and almost kindergartner, but my middle schooler and high schooler, they share with me there's this trend, on social media of she may not be my best friend anymore, but at least she's alive. And it's such a heavy thing. And when you read through a lot of that, they'll say, I may be getting bullied at school every day, but at least they're alive. And so when we look at some of the patterns within Safe to Tell, within the schools where the threats are being reported, usually the reporter is then going to turn around and get bullied and have self-harm inflicting thoughts themselves, and it's like this slippery slope, and that's where I would really love to see more support around that. In talking with some of our SROs, like they will tell you every time, if there's a safety tell report that comes in on this end, you're going to have 5 more on this end that's retaliatory, that are not accurate. It's duplicate. It's a copy and pasted message a dozen times, which is a waste of resources. I'm happy that people want to report it, but it's also, you know, again, like you want to report me, I'm going to report you back, and that's when we see those kids kind of fall by the wayside. So thanks for looking into that space. The last thing I want to point out, I'm really sorry. I'm a little bit concerned that when we look at the data, the rates of suicide for 10 to 18 have stayed the same despite the increase in efforts and funding around mental health. Specifically, you know, we look at all the programs and work that you guys are doing, and those numbers are staying consistent. And so I think you guys pulled data, like to Director Battistelli's point, of like the larger area. If we look at our data, are we seeing any improvements? I know that you had said that there was the 24-25 numbers are pre-pandemic, but that was only when looking at 17 through 19. Prior to that, the numbers were half of what they are today. So we have a short, like right now, we are matching our best year prior pandemic, but we are still significantly above where we were from 14 to 17.
Right, and in 14 to 17, we were like really developing our suicide risk assessment and our protocols and everything into this more robust system.
Okay.
And so that's where I would see the ramping up going from. And those are risk assessments. What I will say is we can get you the actual loss data, and you can see what that is compared to the state. But I can say that we have mirrored the state data that whole time. So we're seeing similar numbers to the rest of our Denver metro area. We sit on a metro crisis team with Jeff Coe, Doug Coe, Cherry Creek, Denver, and Littleton, and when we meet, we talk about students and all the things that are happening, and we're right in line with what's happening in those schools.
Well, I think that's so hard, and I want to thank you guys for all your work, because I see how much work goes into this, and for, you know, other districts that spend less on those resources and have smaller teams than you, to have this similar comparable data can be discouraging. So thank you, Director Assad-Lucas. I'm going to need you in your free time to figure out what we can do better to lower these numbers with all the amazing things. That mental health is not my area, that's, you know, yours. But something has to give, because we can't, you know, it's hard to just dump a lot of resources into something and not see results when, like I said, other districts aren't spending that money and have the same results. So something has to give, and please don't take away resources from mental health, but it's something's wrong. So I condone you guys I appreciate you guys and applaud you for continuing to push at it and work at it and trying to get better and finding that unknown solution.
On that piece, I'll just jump in. I've been reflecting on some of the suicides that have occurred over the last 5 years. And I'll say in a number of those cases, there were absolutely no warning signs, no referrals for a suicide risk assessment. Parents were shocked, staff was shocked, friend groups were shocked. Many of them occurred after a parent-child conflict where the child immediately took impulsive behavior to take their life. There are other cases where there definitely were red flags, multiple suicide risk assessments, lots of support and help, and even through those best efforts, a child took their life. But in between those two polarities, and we're not going to change either of those polarities perfectly, no matter how much investment we make, but in between, even though it doesn't show up as a reduction, just given the amount of turmoil that young people are showing and that people like Children's Hospital say exist in much greater numbers than it did 5 to 10 years ago, I'm absolutely certain that stability in terms of overall numbers reflects that we're identifying more kids, intervening appropriately, and saving kids. So I think just looking at static data doesn't tell the right story. I think the majority of kids who've taken their lives over the last 5 years, oftentimes they're very young kids, 12-year-old kids, which shocked me. So in terms of taking every threat seriously, it matters, but a lot of them had made no threats. It was parent-child conflict or parent-caregiver conflict that within minutes or hours resulted in a suicide. And to hold us responsible for that or to suggest mental health interventions are failing because we can't prevent those situations would be horribly inaccurate.
Well, and I want to clarify, I was not trying to say that we are failing by any means. So I apologize if that is what was taken from that. You know, it just, again, you provided a lot of great context that puts that in a different perspective because, like I said, when you're looking at the data, that doesn't tell the same story as what you have shared. So thank you for that context.
The other piece to remember, I think, is we can talk about what Adams 12 is doing when kids are in Adams 12 from 8 to 3, 9 months out of the year. But the other factor that we all often talk about in education is what do we have control over? And we have control over the curriculum and the support they receive when they're coming to school during our hours. We don't know what's going on with them when they leave. And so that's another factor we need to keep into account is we don't know if during the summer are they receiving mental health supports. And it's important. This is the other half of their lives that we can't ensure that they're receiving the assistance they require.
Well, most of my questions have been answered, but to stay on this topic, how supported are you guys feeling by the county mental health? You know, my husband has a JD and I have a degree, and to find a mental health professional that my kid can see on a regular basis is not accessible. Because of time, because of, you know, and we got a great one with my daughter and they move and that's not anything against our providers. So I think that, again, we put a lot on the schools and that's obviously the best touchstone for the students to begin, but are we getting the support at the county level or the private practice level? I mean, I know that we have the I Matter, but again, to be seen through that is, to get a provider is really, really difficult. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yes, we most certainly can, but I just wanted to stamp one additional thing on our previous conversation in that when we're talking about supporting students, what we know is incredibly protective and keeps them out of a state of crisis is having a trusted adult that they're connected to, is having a sense of belonging and being affirmed by the community that they live in, is having social skills so that they know how to navigate relationships. And so I just want to name that those are a lot of areas that can be incredibly protective and keep them out of a state of crisis and support them when life is challenging and they are navigating life's ups and downs, because that's just inevitable. And then I'll just touch a little bit on your question in the sense of we do have a school-based therapist, so we're working with our community-based partners in that sense. Second Wind is another great resource that we've partnered with to support students who may potentially be suicidal or be impacted by suicide. And yes, we continue to hear the narrative of it's really challenging to find a good fit or somebody that can meet my needs and specifically my kiddo and what they need right now. And so we continue to explore those partnerships, meet with our behavioral health departments, continue to think through what are different ways that we can support, and then how are we supporting our kiddos in the school setting to meet those needs. Do you have anything to add?
One thing we're really excited about is that we have a grant through Regis. We're partnering with them next year, and they're going to have 10 therapists in our elementary school doing play therapy. Pretty intensive work with some of our students, and so we're really excited to have that partnership for at least next year and then see where that goes.
And then real quick, the advocacy, the high school, is that going to be in all high schools, the group?
Yep. We are hoping to have representatives from all high schools, yeah.
Oh, so they won't meet in the high school, there'll be a representative from the high school?
Yes.
Meeting. Okay. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for that, a very thorough overview of what's going on with you guys. And it just, our kids have stuff going on. And it's just important that we honor that we have the ability to, even if it's just one life, to save, that we do what we can. And you guys definitely know how to use your tools. So thank you.
Yeah. This is hard work. And
and it's so impactful, and it's so meaningful, and I appreciate you all so much for what you do. And, you know, I think, I mean, I wanted to speak a little bit to, Aaron, what you were talking about with the protective factors, because resiliency, and that is one of the strongest things that is going, or factors that is going to protect, and not even just from escalating to this far of suicidal ideation, but depression, anxiety, I mean, so many, substance abuse, I mean, so many other factors that are also very serious. And so, like the curriculum used for a lot of that, especially at the elementary level, targets that resiliency and building pro-social relationships. And so, and I know you guys had a lot of help with all that, so thank you. I agree, like, yeah, the majority, not the majority, but yes, very many people, children, adults, who take their lives, there are no signs that we see outward. And so it can be hard. What I will say, though, is I think kids have this really uncanny ability to protect people that they are afraid might be hurt or sad. And that's why they don't show a lot of the things that are going on with them. And so, and I, as a mental health therapist and as a mom, sometimes we don't want to see things as, you know, parents and family members, and not unintentionally, but it's just, it's hard to identify things and it's hard to understand. And that's why when looking at the data, I was not at all surprised there was that dip, well, mainly because of COVID and all that, but because I think people who tend to notice something is off the most, unfortunately, are the peers, because they're with them the most, and then our educators and our staff, because they're also with them so much. I know, again, as a mental health therapist, I've got a call from the kid's social worker at their school saying, hey, we need to have a conversation about something. And I mean, we had to do a lot of reflection of like, wow, like we saw this, but we didn't see it at the same time. And I really appreciate the school intervention and support with that. You do a lot of great work, and so thank you. And, you know, I know, especially Aaron and Sarah, you've met with me different times, and that's really exciting to partner with Regis. And because of that, you're going to probably be seeing a lot more of Kyle because he just started full faculty there, and so we'll be doing play therapy and practicum and all that fun jazz. But yeah, thanks again. This is hard work, and it is draining, and there's a lot of vicarious trauma through it. And so, thank you.
So I know this has been a long discussion. I don't want to belabor it too much, but there's just a few things I want to add in here. One is on threat assessment, just to emphasize how seriously we take threat assessment as a district. I've been in one meeting since Olivia joined us where there were probably 20 people online trying to address a single student and find the best path forward. It often involves we'll often have 3 or 4 police officers in some of the settings I've been in. There's at least 3 situations I can think of in the last 5 to 6 years where we've had 20 or so people assembled, including multiple police officers, mental health professionals from our team, principals, staff members that are close to the student. So the investment we make is significant, and sometimes it extends to consulting with national experts like Dr. Nicoletti, who's an expert in school violence and signs of school violence. So I just want to reemphasize the commitment is big. Number 2, our measures, whether it's in threat assessment, suicide risk assessment, or just general safety response, are acknowledged by our law enforcement partners. I meet periodically with police chiefs from Broomfield, Thornton, Northglenn, Federal Heights, Westminster, and Adams County, as well as on occasion some of their delegated folks who oversee SRO programs and support schools. And I've heard on multiple occasions from many of those chiefs and leaders who support multiple school systems that Adams 12 is the best in terms of what we invest in school safety, the procedures we have in place, the professionalism that we bring, the cooperation, collaboration, and communication we do with them. And it's because of the folks that you see here and many who you don't see here that we get those accolades. It is something we take very seriously. And I guess the final part of this, and sometimes we compartmentalize things differently than the broader public may have interest, or differently than the public at large may. But I'm mindful about some districts neighboring and nearby where superintendents of large systems have said, we didn't expel any kids this year, or we don't expel kids in the system. There have been some situations where students have been charged with significant crimes like attempted murder, and they've remained in school. And I just want to reaffirm that that's not been the stance that I've taken or we have taken as a district. And we do expel a large number of kids each year, many fewer than we did when I started 15 years ago, but many more than I'd like. But there are times that it's absolutely the right thing to do to maintain safety of other students in the school setting. And even if it may not receive the same positive press in some communities, to say that you are expelling students, I firmly believe it's the right thing for us to do. We don't take it lightly, but there are times that it's the necessary next step. So thanks for letting me round out the conversation. Thank you all for being here, and thanks for the work you do every day.
Thanks, guys. All right. Next up is certified negotiations update. We have Dave Lockley and Mila Shepard. I see Steve Lash back there.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Godowski. I'm Mila Shepard, Chief of Human Resources, here to report on our recently concluded, or our tentative agreement anyway, on negotiations with our Teachers Association. And I'll let these gentlemen introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Dave Lockley. I am the president of the District 12 Educators Association.
And Steve Lash, coordinator, District 12 Educator Association.
So I believe that Stephanie has shared a summary sheet with you. This is traditionally a document that lives in the back of the master agreement, summarizing at a quick look the work that went on all year long. As you know, we engaged in the interest-based strategies process, a positive, super collaborative, and year-round endeavor that we've engaged in for a number of years. I know Lori and Amira, as members of that team, are deeply familiar with that, and we really appreciate their service in this group as well. So we want to just share with you some highlights and some areas of general interest, we believe, and lots of housekeeping went on, improving and just tweaking and fine-tuning the agreement to match current practice more accurately. But the things we're going to detail here are changes or bigger, we're subject to bigger conversation. So maybe we'll go in order. And do you want to start with the first couple? Sure.
All right, the first thing I'd like to highlight is our changes that we made to Article 19, which is our Protection of Educators article, which really lays out how the district works collaboratively to support our educators when, not great things happen. And so this year, we really, in listening to the field and listening to folks, we really wanted to strengthen and really talk about inclusion of all persons into the Adams 12 5-star community and wanting everyone to feel inclusive. And so we added a good chunk of text, which will be included in next time's full board packet when you guys get the language. But I just pulled out a specific quote out of there that I wanted to share that really captures the spirit of the changes that we made. We included a phrase that talks about employees are encouraged to fully participate in the Adams 12 5-star community as their true authentic selves in alignment with district expectations. The district and the association are dedicated to maintaining a supportive and welcoming working and learning environment for all employees, feeling safe and respected by all stakeholders. And so, I think in this environment where folks are not feeling safe to be who they are, it's important to send a strong message around that we are a place where people can be who they are. And then a large subject of conversation this year was our work in Article 22. And I would characterize when you look at the document next time in your board packets, it will look like a brand new article with a whole bunch of changes, because it basically is, because we rewrote the whole thing. Over the course of the 50, 60 years of the master agreement, there hadn't really been a real rewrite of the section. And so over the course of that time, different sections were changed, different practices were put in place, and we didn't really take the time to align the entire article with just making sure it actually worked together and made sense together. And so we spent a lot of time aligning the article not only with our current practice, but really doing the work to making sure that there was kind of a level set of definitions and understandings around the system. There were many phrases in the old article that in our 60-school system had a variety of different interpretations, which caused conflicts. And so in the new article, we really focused on clarity and consistency so that everyone understood what was going on, and really focused on that professional collaborative conversation between educators and their supervisors in supporting the educational work environment, so that when educators need to be out for medical reasons, taking care of kids, religious holidays, whatever it is, that the educational environment continues and maintains regardless of that absence, and just kind of continuing that supportive conversation. Mine's next. Okay, good. Oh, go ahead, it's fine.
Yeah, we're just going in order. Yeah, and industry-wide around the country and the world, indeed, employers all report, increasing and different use of temporary leave or leave time. And so we were tackling an enormous societal issue, and not one that was simply resolved. But we took a good stab at clarity of language and intention, and we think that's a great first step. So, and we think that'll get us some better conversations and some better understandings about how to keep the work going when people do need to be absent, and they should be able to be absent and be taken care of in that space. So speaking of absences, the sick leave bank is a self-funded insurance policy. Our teachers contribute a day of their temp leave each year to provide a bank of days so that in the event of a catastrophic prolonged illness, they're able to maintain their pay. We have monitored for a number of years now the usage, the balance, trying to make sure that this is a healthy balance and can stay solvent. We have had a variable buy-in rate, a copay, so to speak. Educators would give no less than 10 days of temp leave time, and if they had it, up to 15 days of their own temp leave time to or more. In past times, we've reduced it to 15 in recent years. That variable rate doesn't feel really equitable or fair in all circumstances. We did a lot of thinking about different stories and different situations. Given the health of the bank, given the recent patterns of usage, we feel confident in saying that we can make it a consistent 10-day buy-in or copay to access this benefit that teachers fund with their donations. And so we feel good about making that a level playing field for folks, and we will continue to monitor the balance and the health of that account.
Then the next article, Article 27, I would highlight for you all is planning periods. For the past almost 5-6 years, we have been working with our special ed department to really determine what is the amount of additional protected time that our special educators need in order to perform those IDEA compliance tasks, IEP writing, testing, all the things that go in above and beyond their teaching responsibilities that they have. And slowly, over the course of the last 5 years, we've been working with different groups and different levels and really assessing that additional time. And this year was our last group. We started all the way at the bottom, and now we finished up at high school this year. And we were able to complete that project, and now we've rolled all of that into the master agreement. And so we're now one of the only districts that really defines that additional protected IDEA compliance time and task to really carve out that extra time that our special educators need to complete the very demanding task. And so I'm really excited about that long project kind of coming to an end. So for all of our educators.
Compensation is a big part of any negotiations process, and so there are several items that fall into the Appendix A, which touches on compensation. One of the other study committees that had been meeting is a high school counselors study committee. We've had a practice for many years of counselors working 10 extra days to do the necessary preparation and school end closure activities that need to happen. And there's been some ambiguity about whether that's required. It causes trouble with educators planning their vacations and their work schedules, resentment among colleagues who don't show up and those who do show up regularly. And so clarity and expectation, clarity and need, and then a determination about when and how those days would be implemented was the work of the study committee. We were able to roll language and a 195-day contract into Appendix A as a result of that work. And then the other things to do with compensation in Appendix A are the financial package, which amounts to an average of 3% of the certified payroll being given to increases. This comes in a couple different forms. The step increase, so moving every teacher forward on their years of service as the salary schedule is designed to do, is the equivalent of about 1.68% of their total payroll. That's classified. Sorry, you guys are you're the poor siblings. 1.29% is your step size on average. Yeah, really. And so for paying for the 1.29 step size, providing an ongoing 0.5 cost of living adjustment, and then the remaining 1.2% is a one-time only cost of living adjustment, which will be made in a single payment in, I'm trying to think, the month of December, so a little mid-year bump for folks. It's a tough financial year, and that is not it's as generous as we could make it, and it's not as much as we'd like to give. But that is the financial package as it was negotiated. Also included in there is an increase to health insurance premiums. 7.09% was the overall increase. District will continue to absorb 95% of the employee-only premiums. Educators will absorb their 5%. That's just a little over $2 a person a month for the DHMO coverage, just to give you a sense of how much that is. Oh, I have one more. Yep, okay, sorry. Another work group that we have had for many, many years has to do with elementary specials staffing, determining how we staff those positions, and we've used various models over the years. This year, with our declines in enrollment and the sudden changes in school size, we realized that we were in a position, and with the funding cuts that we needed to make, we realized that we were in a position to need to go back to a model we'd used some years previously, where we pair small elementary schools and split the educators, the specials educators, between two buildings. It's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but this work group which is comprised of specials coordinators and teachers and principals from elementary level, conferred and agreed to some modeling that will allow us to do that. So we've got some language changes in that MOA, which outline how we're going to do that. And we also have a temporary MOA that we had signed this year that provided for the RIF, the unfortunate reduction in force of 12 specials teaching positions because of the reductions in enrollment and the need to reduce funding. So that's specials staffing. And was it your turn?
All right. The only other thing I would add to that particular thing is one of the other issues that team had identified over the years is really having less than full-time assignments in the specials area was almost impossible to staff. Even if we were able to hire folks in that position, they never stayed. And so the next best thing was this split assignment was really the next best thing to be able to provide the services to our students, but also provide a staffing model that could be consistent for them as well. And then the last thing I'm going to share, and then Mila has one more, is we did some work this year in redefining the work year. There's been a 185th day that's kind of been like riding out there in the ether for a while in our contract, and we've rolled that into the contract this year into a permanent basis. In addition to that, we also have had this outside of the duty time, outside of the duty day activities that have had variable amounts over the years. And so this year we agreed to our current calendar, which is a set number of report days and then a set number of outside of the duty days professional responsibilities. And really, we have an MOA that really talks about how are we going to continue to best use that time to serve the community and the needs of all of our folks. We recognize, well, all of us recognize the need to have parent-teacher conferences, to have back-to-school nights, all of these things. But as we've talked many times in negotiations, many of those same structures, like in many school districts across the nation, have not dramatically changed in anyone's recent history. And so in this next year, we have an MOA to go along with that that's going to look at and make recommendations to the district's policy council. That's the group that makes a lot of our big decisions, that has students, parents, administrators, classified, certified, educators on that committee, on some recommendations on how can we possibly do things like community and parent engagement differently. How should we update potentially our policies and whatnot to maybe be more effective and align better with the district's mission, vision, and goals.
And I think the last article that we'd like to just draw to your attention on this long list is a new MOA and a new concept designed to help us when we return to school in the fall and we are doing class size balancing. And you may have heard us talking about hot spots and cool spots where the enrollment in a classroom is less than we had predicted, and that's a cool spot, and we need to do something to right size, or a hot spot where it's much greater than we expected. And once the school year has started, the teacher contract year has started, that is an incredibly difficult ask to say to a teacher, I know you just got done setting up your classroom, and I need you to tear it apart and go set it up at a different school. And I know you were ready to teach second grade. We need you to teach third grade. It's really, really difficult to do that. And very often the process we use to identify impacted parties tends to identify people who are newer in their career and less experienced. And they are the very people who are least prepared to do a good job of that. And so we wanted to incentivize perhaps better prepared folks, people who were maybe a little farther along in their career and maybe ready for a change. And by offering a financial incentive to people who raise their hand and volunteer and say, I'll go. I will this year take that very last minute, very disruptive change and go and willingly do that. And so we've written an MOA that provides some conditions for that and some identified resources for that. And we'll see if that doesn't incentivize the right people to do that hard thing for the sake of our kids.
The only other thing I have to add is the ratification timeline. We'll be presenting we've had some preliminary presentations to members now, but the official ballot will go out next Tuesday and will close the following Tuesday. So it should be done and completed in time for presentation for your 21st board meeting. And I guess we're open for questions now.
Any questions?
I just want to say, looking at the list, didn't realize we did this much work in the moment. I know. And we did a lot of work, but then I'm scrolling through. It's like you keep scrolling and scrolling. It's like, do great work. And I shared previous meetings that it's a great team. And what I appreciate about the team is there's a lot of disagreements. There's, differing of opinions, for sure, and everyone comes together to compromise and to figure out what's best for kids. And that was always the theme of all of it, was how do we serve kids? What is best for kids? So, yeah, great work.
I have to agree. Just because I've been a part of this team for so many years, and our team really is exemplary for teams all over, because our facilitators know what other teams are capable of. I know what a few others are capable of, and we might not be able to offer the most money, but we do put a lot of time and effort into making sure that our teachers' working conditions, which is our children's learning conditions, are as best that we can have with what we have. Because, we know that there's other districts close by that can offer more money, but our teachers continue to show up and do what's best for our children. So I appreciate all the work that this team does.
My comment's pretty similar. There's a part of me that's inclined to send a videotape of your presentation to Mark Clark and Norm Jennings, because when they were on the board, as they started before IBS, what they would often say is, we can never get anything changed and accomplished in the master agreement. Because in the old days, I think we all know, each side could open 3 articles. Both sides would often open the same articles, negotiate the impasse. And so the presentation probably would have been about 3 minutes long. Here's where we landed on compensation, and we changed 1 sentence in 1 article, and that was kind of how it landed each year. So the fact that we've got a lengthy presentation of so many things that are getting changed and improved, I think is great validation for this work we started with some unease years ago about trying IBS. It's definitely allowed us to do much better work in being nimble and proactive in many cases. The second thing I would say is, I think there's times that people feel like the IBS process is some magic elixir that just makes everything easy and okay. And I think that's not the case. The people around the table on our team are a lot of the reason why we hear from our facilitators who do work nationwide in a variety of other states and other districts that we do the very best work in the space, and it's because of the people we have around the table. It starts with Mila Shepard and Dave, who both, I think are retiring from these roles for next year, and it's going to be a tremendous loss for our team and for our district for that to be true. Gina and Aaron are also a big part of our success there, because everyone trusts when it comes to compensation that what folks are sharing is accurate, honest, there's not any smoke being blown, and that's really helpful. I saw an article the other day in Durango where the mediator or the facilitator of the IBS team was saying, the time when IBS gets really hard is when you get to compensation, because that's when it typically gets positional. And as I reflect on this last year's discussions, and in most of our recent years, compensation was probably the easiest topic that we had and the least positional of them all. And it's because we just have people who are reasonable, rational, realistic, committed to working appropriately together, and it's an honor to be part of that team. Dave and Milo, we're going to miss you a bunch.
Thanks, Chris. And I just want to, I want to follow those comments with a point of personal privilege to just say thank you to my partner in this work, because we came into these roles together 8 years ago, and I think we've built something that we can be proud of and continued something that was started, but done good work together, innovated a lot, and I just think that all that we've been able to do as a district is because of a positive, collaborative relationship, and that just starts with leadership, brave leadership, a lot of courage to do things that were the right things for kids and not always received positively in the field. And so thanks for your courage, Dave and Steve, as you led
into this to make this work. And I just want to express my appreciation for that. And I want to express my appreciation for Lori and Mira for doing that work. And I'll just stick with Dak. But no, thank you. It's going to be a great loss to have both of you leaving at the same time. And you can tell that they were absolutely devastated about retiring. You said retiring.
Well, it seems to be a pattern. Mark and I left at the same time. Mark Hinson and I, you guys came in, now you're leaving. And the beauty of IBS is that as a team, we've had a lot of people go in and out over the years, but we've maintained the integrity of the team. So that's cool too. So thank you.
I guess it looks like we're going to have Tim and Steve in those roles for the next 8 years, so that's reassuring and good to know.
All right, workers' comp coverage update.
Good evening, Board. I'm Gina Lanier, Chief Financial Officer, and I wanted to take a moment to introduce Radu to you all. He's our Director of Risk Management. He's been with the district just over a year, and in that time, he's really done a deep dive into a lot of our processes and has been looking for ways to improve our support to employees, improve the programs, and also look for ways to save money. So I'm going to turn it over to Radu.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for having me here. And most of all, I want to thank you for your leadership, navigating us through this tumultuous waters and crazy and super uncertain environment, nothing that I've seen in my career. And I can honestly tell you, I've been here a year and I'm proud to be part of this team, and I love coming into work every day, and it's great. And the culture is amazing, and I really love it, so thank you very much for that. As Gina mentioned, I like to look at stuff from a different perspective and using my experience and trying to find improvements. And I think I have some good news, and I wanted to run some ideas by you on our insurance program for workers' compensation, which is almost half of our spend for insurance. The other half is property and casualty insurance, but workers' comp is something that we deal with every day. We have a lot of people that get hurt, and we take really good care of them in line with our culture to put people first. And I'm going to cover what we have in place right now, the proposed alternative, and some estimates of cost and pros and cons, and also the recommendation. We're currently with Pinnacle Assurance. We have a very high retention or deductible, if you want, $500,000 on each and every claim. So pretty much everything that we pay is out of our pocket, and that's the general fund. We did not have, luckily, anything that went over $400,000 in the last 7-8 years. So everything is our money, and we pay about $1.1 million yearly in claims. Below the deductible, again, everything's been below the deductible. On top of that, there's a claims adjusting fee, so we have third-party adjusters. In this case, it's Pinnacle as well. And then there's a premium for the excess coverage over $500,000 to the statutory limits for Colorado. And they total about $1.6 million a year. And as you know, or might know, Pinnacle is a quasi-independent political subdivision of the state. The proposed alternative is JSD, which stands for Joint School District Pool. Their retention is very similar, is $550,000. Claims adjusting similar, 5%, is not a big piece. And the combined cost that we were quoted this year was $1.58 million, which is the same as what we pay now, but they used an actuary to estimate our losses, and they came back with $1.3 million instead of the 1.1 that we're paying in average. And there lies the savings, but I'll show you a different slide with how it's calculated. So technically, if our losses are going to continue to be $1.1 million, we're going to get $200,000 back because that's incorporated in the premium. And there's a retroactive assessment that's done at 18 months, and we get refunded for that. And their membership is solely school districts. And they were founded in '86. They were never open to adding new members, and that came around this year. I started talking to them about 9 months ago, and there's another district that's interested in joining them in Colorado. So it's a good opportunity, a good time to join. They're very similar structure to what we have in place right now. So on the left is what we currently have with Pinnacle. On the right is GSD, so up to $100,000 will be paying for each and every claim. From $100 to $550, which is their deductible, is going to be shared about the members, and we'll pay our share of premium of losses, which is going to be 14%, and then they reinsure through Safety National over $550. And here's who the members are. Boulder Valley, Cherry Creek, Aurora, Littleton. It's potentially going to be us and one more school district. We would be the fourth largest, the largest being $600 million. They didn't share, but I believe it would be Cherry Creek, and 137 is Littleton. And we will be the fifth largest out of all of them from a premium standpoint, due to our really good experience. Like, we're not number 5 from a size standpoint, but we're number 5 from a premium standpoint. So the largest premium is 3.3. We're going to be at 1.6, and then Littleton is 630. So we're not the big dog anymore. It's very similar to our current structure, and we'll have more ownership in the process, and there's going to be a third party managing the claims versus the insurance company, which is a bit odd, but that's required by Pinnacle right now. And here's the savings. We currently pay $389 in premium to Pinnacle. We expect it's going to be similar or maybe an increase with inflation. The estimated premium, which is expenses for GSD, is $195. And this is always going to be true. I don't think Pinnacle is going to go down in premium, or anyone else that's an insurance company, versus the $195, which is pretty much, it's self-managed by the members, so you don't pay expenses for an insurance company structure. And the calculation is $247,000 in expenses, but they also are able to invest the income because they charge a premium initially, and they estimate we're going to get about $50,000 back based on their prior experience. So we will end up paying about $200, and the delta, which is per year, and it's likely not going to change. The assumption is the losses are going to stay the same on the two programs. They're going to be managed similarly. Deductibles are similar, so I actually predict the losses are going to be a bit better because we'll have a bit more control on the process. And here's the pros, and I'll have cons as well. We will have more control of adjusting, because we can set up some rules on when they need to reach out to us and how they should handle our claims and all that. We can share knowledge with our peers. CCMSI is the claims adjuster, the third-party administrator. 70% of their business in Colorado is public entities, so they're really good at that. We're going to be part of a big pool. $12 million is their total premiums versus our 1.6, so less variability. We will have a seat on the board, so we have a say, and it's equal to all the other members. And at the end, they reconcile the premium, so we're going to pay what we actually spend in claims, even though the premium might be a bit different initially. Some cons, we'll have to keep the existing claims with Pinnacle until they close. So we'll have to manage two relationships, not a big deal, we can do that. The number of claims is gonna be the same. Potentially we'll pay for some legal services. We usually don't get there. We didn't have any legal counsel involved in our claims this past year, and I can think about it in the past because we do take good care of people and we do the right thing. So, and adjusters can handle claims, and workers' comp is not like liability insurance. Everything is well defined, and we settle for the right causes, and we don't have issues. There's a slight increase in the deductible. We never got even close to that, so I don't think that's going to make a difference. And as I mentioned, we can reconcile and get our money back if we end up spending less on claims. So with that, the recommendation is that we switch at the school year. On June 1st is when we renew insurance. The estimated yearly savings will be $200,000, and I expect that to continue as it's pretty much a fixed cost. I believe we'll have better control of claims. I did meet with the potential TPA, and they have a good process and a good team in place. I do expect lower claims costs, but even if they stay the same, the $200,000 will be there. And we'll have the opportunity to discuss claims and trends and everything else with our peers. This membership was just approved, our membership was approved by the board of GSD. However, it's pending your approval and the state approval as well. It's in process right now as potential. It should be an administrative decision, but you never know. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question. You said that we will have a representative on the board. Would that be one of us, or, okay, thanks.
Gina actually was on this board, on this pool before at Aurora. Maybe you want to talk about it?
Yes, so the board is made up, primary seats are typically the finance representative from each of the districts, and then they have an alternative that is the risk person. And so very heavily, I would be, if we were to make this switch, I would be much more heavily involved in the workers' comp administration than I am today.
Because I seem to remember when we were part of a BOCES, one of
Yes.
us was one of the board members was a representative. I'm starting to get deja vu here.
Yeah, not going back to that. Okay,
This seems like a pretty good deal. You answered my question about the legal claims. We didn't have any that we really had to support last year, and it seems like historically that hasn't really been an issue. Thanks for your work in exploring it and setting up this connection. It seems like a positive one. It'll save us, what, $200,000? Yeah.
Like in jobs, we're going to save jobs, right? And we're going to be able to give back to kids because this comes out of the general fund. So it's not much, but it's something. And
$200,000 is a lot.
Okay, yeah. I come from the corporate world, and I cannot believe how tough finances are in education. It's actually sad, but we're doing our best to contribute to keeping our kids educated, and education changed my life, so I'm totally behind it.
While Radu's here, I'll just mention, beyond this proposal, which will save us some money and put us in a better spot, he also, because of his knowledge of insurance, helped us secure some supplemental insurance on our Thornton High School project, which is a massive undertaking, $260 million. And typically where architects and contractors are insured, you would have a lot of exposure and risk. And for a really modest cost of, I think, $150,000, we supersized our insurance in a way that just gives us a lot of reassurance and protection on a site that I think you all know is complicated to design and build on, given the sloping and all the other dynamics. So Radu's helped us in so many ways in a short amount of time. Really glad to have him on the team.
Yeah, the savings were much bigger there because they were quoted over $1 million for the contractor to buy it. So a very different approach, but anyways, that's bigger money than this. Thank you. I love being here, honestly. So well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gina, school finance update. Which I have to say, I feel very updated because I was getting texts at weird hours of the day.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So those of you who have already looked at the presentation, this is not a Adams 12 budget update. Instead, this is a school finance update to let you all know the school finance bill passed 1320 with some amendments, and so wanted to walk you all through some of the amendments. When we were initially presenting on our budget projections, one of the big changes that happened was we were assuming, we had a lot of assumptions, but one of the last assumptions we stuck with was we would end up with 4-year averaging and 10% implementation of what was 1448 and now 1320. So some of the changes that happened is 1320 is being extended 1 year. So it was originally supposed to be phased in over 6 years, and instead is intended to be phased in 7 years, meaning that the full funding from the new formula won't come into effect until 2031-32. It's hard to even say that time frame. That doesn't feel like we should be talking about the 2030s yet. In that new implementation, I just wanted to share, like I said, we've landed on 4-year averaging and 15% implementation, so that's 5% better than we were initially modeling. And then I show what the should all go well and the state have enough to fund, this is how it will be phased in. And so that's 15% of the new formula money, 30%, 45%, and so on. So in the event that the state does not have the funds in order to fund the new School Finance Act, as I just indicated, in 26-27, that budget year, we would go back from, so the plan is to go to 3-year averaging 30%. I don't think I said that, sorry about that. So instead of 3-year averaging at 30%, we will go back to 4-year averaging in 15%. If in the 27-28 budget year, there aren't the funds to fund the new formula, then a smoothing factor will be implemented through the work of some work groups. And part of that piece is if the state education fund balance falls below 200 million. I'm a little interested with another slide that I'll touch on this to see what happens with that. The one that I cared heavily about, not that I didn't care about the other pieces, but Aaron and I identified on March 12th that the new School Finance Act didn't work with existing statutes that tell us how to fund charter schools and how the state funds CSI schools. We identified the issue. You guys have heard some of that. The good news is we were able to get an amendment pushed through that maintains mostly status quo. So the state will have to calculate the School Finance Act in the old way and the new way. And so the old way we will allocate status quo, how we've been doing, and then the new portion of the School Finance Act, 15% implementation, will be allocated on a straight per pupil basis. We will divide that money by the funded pupil count and then allocate it evenly to our charter schools, and the state will do the same for our CSI schools. A work group of stakeholders will create a recommendation to address the budget years beyond to address beyond the next school year for the future. This is just a one-year fix. And I wanted to share with you all what would have happened if we didn't get this amendment through. So what would have happened is Aaron and I would have made some assumptions about the intent of the law, and we would have chose how to fund our charter schools based on what we believe the intent was, because the language made it impossible for us to do what we were supposed to do. In that, a charter school could have very easily said, the district is not funding us per law, and the remedy for that is they would take that to the State Board of Education, and we would argue our case and see where it lands. So a huge amount of relief on my part, and I know on Aaron's part, that we have some certainty on what we would put together follows the law. That was our big concern. We wanted to do that calculation in a way that follows the law. And then the last piece that I'll highlight through the amendment process, I'm sure you all heard about the Kids Matter account. So this is the piece that, as I was just talking about the state education fund, if the fund balance drops behind 200 million, I think this piece may be the portion to try to prevent that. And so it creates a sub-account of the state education fund that goes into effect as of July 1, 2026. And if appropriated, and I think that's really important language for everyone to hear, if appropriated by the General Assembly, and I realize I believe I have a typo. It's 0.65% of 1/10 of 1% on federal taxable income, which is estimated at around $233.7 million in fiscal year 26-27, will get deposited into this new sub-fund of the state education fund. Those dollars may only be used for funding total program for school districts and the categorical programs. We thought it was important to contrast what the Constitution already requires for the state education fund created in Amendment 23, and that requires 1/3 of 1% of taxable income to go into the state education fund. So Aaron and I had some fun doing the math on this, and it is 0.0, I wish I brought my sticky note, 0.009 something percent. It's a really teeny number that will be added. I get 233.7 million is a lot of money. It's not going to solve, it's not new money, it's from the general fund. So this is coming off the top of the general fund going into this account, which hopefully does protect the ability for the new School Finance Act to be funded. What questions do you have?
None? We'll test two summary statements of what you shared. So all of the work around the charter school funding piece, I would summarize that as saying we did some technical amendments because the old law and the new law didn't tie together well in terms of terminology, methodology. We had some gaps that you've helped the state fill that largely preserve what's been the practice historically for lots of years. The next step will be to have a policy discussion about whether some of those allocation methods should change. Because one of the things I've shared with the board before was Stargate as an example, that because we have more than 40% of our kids who qualify for free and reduced, that triggers a statute that sets their free and reduced lunch or at-risk allocation at our percentage instead of their actual percentage, and the state has backfilled that historically to the tune of about $682,000. The policy discussion about whether that practice should continue will be a next step that may change legislatively in the next session.
Correct.
And then the other thing I just wanted to say out loud that I think is true, but we'll have Gina affirm, when we did some of our modeling for budget reductions earlier this spring, we expected a 10% implementation of 1448 instead of 15%. So that change to 15% brought more money, as well as, I think, a methodology change that measures the 15% against what we would get under a 5-year averaging system instead of a 4-year. I think the net is we probably came out about $4.3 million better because of those kinds of changes over the last 4 to 6 weeks. We spent $2.3 million in the 0.5% COLA for our employee groups, and the other $2 million hasn't been allocated, but will probably help us balance for next year. So she doesn't look as enthusiastic about that part, so I'll let her correct whatever part she needs to.
You guys know I do not like quoting numbers that I can't. Those numbers have changed so many times in the last 6 weeks that I would not want to say 100% certainty that it grew by about, that we came to the good around 4 million. I think you're close. I think it's similar, but Your Honor, I'm not going to say that under oath.
That's fair. We'll talk about that more when we do our budget update next meeting.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Gina.
And thanks for what you've done for school finance as a state.
Yes.
You know, you really brought to light things that had never surfaced. So thank you.
Yeah.
And really, that was simply listening to the figure setting. Aaron and I tag team and try to listen to as much of what happens at the Capitol around K-12 education funding. And we got really lucky that we happened to be listening. We understood enough about how supplemental at-risk works. So as soon as it was stated that they could literally not calculate it, our flags were raised of, well, that's how we fund charters. If you can't calculate that, we can't calculate how to fund charters. And so a lot's to be said about paying attention to those meetings, because had we not, I don't know that we would have figured it out when we did.
I don't want to beat the horse. That's important, but there's a lot of people who have awareness and aren't willing to put in all the sweat equity and time that you did. I mean, literally, you were working on this late into the night, 10, 11 o'clock plus, weekends, throughout the day. It became your full-time job for about 2 weeks, is my sense. So there's a lot of people who say, yeah, there's a problem, but I don't have time or interest in fixing it. And so I'm grateful for you and for Aaron leaning in and making this better.
Yeah. And I'm going to echo that, because, yeah, the amount of work and time you and Aaron put in is just beyond appreciated. So thank you so much.
I was just going to say that as well. You and Aaron are an indispensable team. The other thing I was going to say is that I do appreciate, I think it's State Senator Kirkmeyer and State Senator Kolker for the bipartisan effort to keep the education fund continuing. I do still feel like we're being handed a tiny little corner of the proper flotation device we need to stay afloat in this raging ocean of inadequate funding. So.
Thanks. Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Aaron. All right. Proclamation, National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I will entertain a motion to adopt the proclamation declaring Friday, June 6, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Adams-Toll 5-Star Schools as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We had Kathy Kelly talk to us during public comment earlier about this.
Well, and that's where I was going to talk about cuts to mental health. Mental health funding is so vital and critical for victims of gun violence, and not even just direct victims, but secondary victims of, when Kathy Kelly was sharing that even, not, oh my gosh, my brain's not even working at this time anymore. Oh my goodness. Not direct violence and not super violent crimes, but accidents and just got done talking about suicide risk assessments and threat assessments and how gun violence is an epidemic in this country. And so it's just critical that we come together and we work together in order to help our communities and help people struggling. And again, continue to provide these protective factors that our team was just talking about. And one of them is reducing access to means and so of violence. So, yeah, this is something that we definitely need to come together as a nation to support.
Call the vote.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshallshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
All right. Sorry that they couldn't wait for this because nobody's here. Well, you guys. Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the work-study session and regular board meeting of April 16th, 2025 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshallshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
All right, personnel actions. I will entertain a motion to approve the personnel actions as listed. Resignations and terminations, transfers and reassignments, employment and leaves of absence.
So moved.
Second.
Director Assad Lucas.
Aye.
Director Battistelli.
Aye.
Director Goldstein.
Aye.
Director Marshallshin.
Aye.
Director Potter.
Aye.
Okay, future agenda items. The next meeting is after our graduation, so we'll adjust accordingly time-wise. And it's going to be busy, the next two meetings. We did cancel the last meeting in June. Make sure that you tell Stephanie which graduations you're able to attend and whether or not you're able to go out to eat in between with us. Bo's all excited about one of the places. All right. Anything else? Okay, then we'll be adjourned.